off the new year very punctually. Great. Good evening and Happy New Year, everybody. Welcome to the first full board meeting of 2023 for Manhattan Community Board 4. My name is Jeffrey LeFrancois, and it's a privilege to be calling this meeting to order this evening as chair. And here we are again, still on the squares. Tonight's meeting is being held via Zoom as the mayor's extended the executive order to allow for public meetings to be held virtually through January 20th, 2023. The meeting is being streamed live on our YouTube channel and a transcript is being recorded. Of course, it will continue to be accessible on our YouTube channel after, and requests can be made to review it as well from the board office. We have a busy agenda tonight. And of course, as is our custom, we'll have the public session when members of the public will be given the ability to speak during that time. Please note that we have over 30 speakers signed up to speak this evening, in addition to 2 presentations and a hearing. So all public speakers will have 1 minute for their remarks, regardless of the topic. The agenda for tonight's meeting can be found on our website at mcb4.nyc. I'd also like to take a moment to thank the members of the board for giving me this opportunity to serve another year as chair. As I noted in my email to members of the board at the end of 2022, it was quite a year for us, CB4. Throughout roughly 32 hours of full board meetings, we entertained 228 letters on matters big and small on behalf of our district. Every committee had wins, and naturally, some had steps backwards, but that comes with the work we do. So I'm excited for what 2023 has in store, both for what we know and of course, what we have yet to learn. And December didn't slow down, and January is certainly already taking shape, as tonight's agenda is reflective of. So with that, and without further ado, I'd like to welcome our friends from the Parks Department for an update and presentation on the trial dog run at the Penn South Playground. Therese, I see you were here.
Yes, hi Jeffrey, thank you.
Hi.
So I'll be brief. It's just to, as you know, the Parks Department created a dog run at Penn South, and this was in April of last year, 2022. As a trial basis. And it was in response to the growing need for more dedicated public space for our furry friends. And there was a temporary closure of the nearby Chelsea waterfront dog run and a closure at DeWitt Clinton for the resurfacing there. And since then, we've received a number of complaints regarding the location due to disruptive noise levels that are impacting residents of Penn South and the St. Columba convent. So we understand there's a resolution being voted on today with regard to the Penn South Dog Run, which was discussed and approved at the December CB4 Parks Committee meeting. And we look forward to hearing the results of that vote and reviewing the resolution with you, should this board decide to proceed with that. During the Parks Committee meeting that was held, these complaints about the dog run, someone had suggested that Chelsea Park handball courts be turned into a dog run. So this site has been identified as an underutilized space, and we think it's a location that would mitigate some of the concerns regarding noise levels in residential areas. And we'd like to explore the possibility of converting a portion of the handball court into a dog run. And we value the thoughts and the input in this process, and we hope to explore this idea and other ideas about the site, such as pickleball or squash courts, for a potential win-win solution at the next CB4 Parks Committee meeting, which is in January on the 12th. Ultimately, the Parks Department wants to be responsive to the needs and concerns of the community. And we want to both actively listen to these concerns and be proactive about identifying potential solutions. So we're looking forward to January 12th, and I hope that helps to ease some of the situation and lead toward this vote and help you in the process.
Thanks, Therese. I have a couple of questions on that, if you don't mind, and I'm sure there may be a couple of other hands from the board members as well. Here we are finding ourselves in a position that is uncomfortable for many. And so given that the Parks Department is looking to sort of do this again in a new space, what happens if a group of organized folks object to it in the new location? How does the Parks Department deal with this type of stuff when we go trial after trial, and sort of what happens, and are there any examples you can point to for successes of stuff like this?
Well, I think we're in the middle of a successful attempt at understanding what the community needs, and this trial basis, was something that is now being explored with the board, and thankfully the board is really working with us to listen to the community. So it's a process, and it's something that we've gone through with Penn South. So I'm hoping that if we do explore that at Chelsea, we go through that process with community input and with your support.
Okay, a couple of questions from members. Carl? Mr. Wilson? You want me to go to Candace?
No, sorry, I'm
There
on
you
a
go.
different device right now, so I was trying to figure out how to unmute myself. Sorry. Hi, Therese. Thank you so much for, I think, Parks Department's willingness to quickly identify a possible alternative location, given the complaints that we've heard about this one, but also keeping in mind the need that this dog park has revealed to us, because we have heard a lot of people who were in favor of this location for a number of reasons. I am wondering if we're to go through a review process, and we identify this spot in Chelsea, we meet in January, the board weighs in, say we agree, that it's a good spot, and we write a letter supporting that. That's passed at our February meeting. How long would it take Parks to convert this new space, given the relatively urgent the need of many folks to have a dog run like this in this area?
It depends on the design of it, and it's something, we don't want to change the park too much. So I can get back to you with an answer how quickly, but we really need the community's input, and we want to hear what the community has to say, and explore that and the other options. So.
But would it be would it be a month-long process to convert, or weeks?
There's things that we need to explore, like water. There's things that we need to explore how that would function with, blocking off the space and accessible gates, especially while there's construction. So that's something we need to explore internally and get you a date for. But that's if, all that is a go, and it seems like something the community wants and we have support for.
Thanks, Carl. Candace?
I have a question about the location. Can you repeat where you were saying that's going to be? The new location?
Yeah, the handball courts at Chelsea Park on 28th Street.
So just in my memory, I'm thinking we actually had on the waterfront, I thought that there's supposed to be a squash that was supposed to do a whole thing about it, because they did a thing about the handball courts and how they weren't being used, and they came in and they were going to redo that area for the squash, and I don't know when they were going to start that project. So if it does get through, how is that going to interfere with that?
That's something we need to still hear about. We haven't heard about it in a year, and it's not been something that we're anticipating doing yet. So it's another one of those ideas that we explore. We have a letter in support, I believe, from the board, but I don't know where the guild is on that and whether that's something we can go forward with feasibly. Because I think it required a reservation system and a couple other things to be in place. So like I said, that also has to be explored.
Okay, I'll bring it back up when you come to waterfront, but I just wanted to make sure that was, well, at least my memory, I'm glad it was there. Thank you.
And I guess would the dog run prevent or preclude a conversion of a squash court? Like, is the idea that we're keeping part of the handball court in effect, right? Like, are we doing a 50-50? Is that kind of the idea?
Right, that's the whole, depending on the design and how it would work, there's two sides of the handball court, and one area is a little bigger than the other. So we'd explore that.
Okay. Any other questions from the board? Okay, I know many hands went up in the public, but many folks are set up to speak on the dog run in the public session. And so we're going to keep those comments for that time. So, Therese, thank you very much. And we appreciate you being here tonight and look forward to a further discussion at our Parks Committee meeting on the 10th, I believe. Alrighty. Up next, we have a presentation and a public hearing on the Bayview building at 550 West 20th Street. This is a topic and building not new to this community board, but we are discussing something rather new and exciting as it relates to the use of the building. So for this, I want to welcome to the front the co-chairs of the Chelsea Land Use Committee, Jessica Chait and Carrie Keenan, and Housing co-chair Joe Restuccia, to take us through a presentation on the status and potential future of the Bayview facility.
Thank you, Jeffrey. I'll just, on behalf of Clue, say that we're really excited to share this information in the presentation that is for the board members in the Dropbox and for the community will be on our website following this meeting. It's a very robust overview of the site, the history of the site and where we're going, and Joe will take us all through that. From our perspective, we're really excited. Clue is really excited about the potential activation of the space that has been long underutilized, and hope that in doing so, we can also ensure, or expect that in doing so, we will also ensure the restoration of this important asset in the community, which has long played such an important role and is actively experiencing challenges due to neglect and not having the appropriate oversight and attention to its historical fabric. So we're very excited about this. As I said, the presentation that Joe will go through is very robust. And while we have the opportunity today to hear from the board and the community, we'd also encourage everyone to come to the respective Chelsea Land Use and Housing meetings in January to further flesh out any comments so that we can put our recommendations, formalize our recommendations and bring them back to the board next month. Joe, I'll turn it to you.
Thanks. Jesse, can you put a presentation up?
Will do. Yep. Sorry, give me one moment. That good for everybody?
Yeah, I think we're good.
All right.
So Bayview Chelsea, and that's what we're calling it from now on, because in fact, everyone should know that this is a proposed affordable housing development in Chelsea on the building we know as Bayview, but actually started out as the Siemens Y. Next. So we have an overview, broad history, and then the key components here for redevelopment: affordable housing and a community service center and historic preservation. And it's a multi-use concept. That's what we're talking about here. And we'll take questions from the public, speakers from the public, but also questions from the board, because we're going through this for the first time in full. Next. Everyone should know where this building is: 11th Avenue and 20th Street. Next. The existing zoning of this building, it's part of sub-area D of the West Chelsea Special Zoning District. It has a maximum height of 250 feet, or roughly 25 stories. It has a base height, a maximum of 90 feet, so it's not going to be overbearing if in fact there's any addition to the building. And it is state-owned land. That's an important thing to know. That state-owned land, the state may choose to override the existing zoning. So one of our jobs in our public process is to discuss what things we feel comfortable with being overridden and things we don't. The building is currently overbuilt, but if you put the annex as part of the building, which it actually is, it is slightly underbuilt. Next. You see the building from 11th Avenue and then along West 20th Street. You should note that the building with a slightly different color brick is the annex. However, they were both built at the same time. Next. You see both built in 1931. That was the Seamen's House, a YMCA for sailors and seamen coming into the port. And the annex was constructed as a laundry for all 16 YMCA branches in Manhattan and the Bronx. Why? It was in a manufacturing zone. Next. It was designed by Shreve, Lamb and Harmon, Empire State Building architects, and it is a pretty remarkable building. If you look at it carefully, it's almost like a version of the base of the Empire State Building. 225 men were above 4 floors of social spaces. And today there is still a gymnasium and a pool and a chapel. Next. The 1967, the state appropriated the facility, meaning they made a deal with the YMCA. The port had changed. There was no more break bulk cargo. Ships were not coming in as they were. So there were less seamen using the YMCA and multiple facilities for residential use and activities for seamen. And it passed to the state's Narcotics Addiction Control Commission. That program was terminated as part of the Rockefeller drug laws. And then it passed to the Department of Corrections for a minimum security prison for women. Next. Bayview was closed permanently after Superstorm Sandy flooded West Chelsea. It was so extensive, everyone was re-evacuated prior, but it had major damage to the building in terms of its mechanical equipment, not the building itself. Next. You skipped one? Sorry. Yeah. So in 2013, Community Board 4 responded to a request for, the states wanted to request for proposal to redevelop this site, but the RFP was left rather open. One of the key parts of the RFP was the state said no housing use here, only some sort of commercial use. There were a lot of major real estate companies interested in renovating this building. However, a group called the Nova Foundation, not-for-profit affiliated with Warren Buffett's son, Peter. There's only 3 members on the board of this organization. They were designated, and they were not able to move the project ahead. Finally, after 6 years of effort in 2019, they withdrew. Next. The building shows up as part of the Affordable Housing Plan of Community Board 4, and we called as a board specifically that the building be used for affordable housing and a community center, and specifically for supportive housing. Supportive housing is normally 60% for people coming from shelters and 40% community residents. But additionally, we said here, we thought that there was a good opportunity to create a space for beds for mentally ill individuals who need much greater social services than supportive housing can actually provide. Specifically, the idea of a residential psychiatric facility jointly run with a hospital. Next. And again, I note only for a portion, maybe 30 beds out of that. This building again comes alive as part of the discussion about the redevelopment of Penn Station. And the community board had negotiated to get affordable housing into that plan. And actually, Bayview in the end and the press release showed up with at least 60 units of affordable supportive housing as part of the Penn Station redevelopment plan. Next. So the governor made the announcement. And then the community board leadership met with Empire State Development Corporation, the entity of the state that's going to develop this project. And we asked that they intended to issue an RFP in December. We asked them to take their time so we can get more community input and get a back and forth in the community board and the broader folks in the community about this. And they agreed. Now they may, again, I want to note, propose to override some of the zoning, but not all items of it. In our plan, we call enough for 60 units of affordable housing, but for up to 115 permanently affordable units, or the capacity for this mentally ill homeless population as part of it. Next. So this timeline is as follows. That we've met on committees regarding this with ESD, both Chelsea Land Use and Housing in December. We're here, there's a public hearing today. We're hearing it again in January, both committees. Then the 1st of February, we'll adopt a policy position. And we have a conversation during the February with our elected officials to come to conclusion on our recommendations for the RFP with ESD. And then on 3/23, In March of this year, ESD intends to issue an RFP to start the process off for an affordable housing use for this building. Next. So our three issues in our program is as follows: affordable housing, a community service center, and historic preservation of the key building elements. Next. Again, we're looking at 115 units plus roughly 30 beds for psychiatric, residential psychiatric housing, and of course, social service offices to support that on the affordable housing side. All of these apartments would be below 60% of AMI, which are low income, very low, low income and very low income. Next. These photos are showing you what the building looks like today. The board went on a tour about 2 weeks ago, and it is remarkably extant. The gym is entirely functional today. The gym was built in 1931. The pool, you're looking at some of the mosaics of the pool there. And there's an industrial kitchen, which is on the ground floor. That had to be moved to another location because of resiliency requirements in the new West Chelsea zoning. In the past, we have absolutely said we want these things preserved because we need community space in Chelsea. Next. Historic preservation. You're seeing some of the details specifically on the building. The glazed mosaic reliefs. Everything was built at the same time. You can see it is a pure Art Deco building. Next. And the details are quite remarkable. Internally too, that photo on the bottom, you can't see it that well, but it's an oil painting of a ship at sea. So the entire theme of this building is seamen and sailors. We are looking to have the plaques restored, appropriate historic windows, preservation or use of glass stained windows. And if there's anything that is proposed for addition, it must be very minimal and consistent with the building character. Very important. But most important, that pool, gym, and cafeteria and chapel should be preserved for reuse. It really represents the YMCA's cultural legacy. This was a community center. This was a YMCA. The community used this building besides the seamen throughout its entire history until it acquired by the state. Next. And we are at the end.
Thanks, Joe. You mentioned the tour the board recently did, and I guess the only thing I would add is the most recent public thing that took place at this facility was an Annie Leibovitz photo exhibition, probably about 5 or 6 years ago. Other than that, the place has sadly sat underutilized. So thank you, Joe, for taking us through that. To the committees, the Housing Committee has talked about this and Chelsea Land Use. So this is a pretty exciting moment. We're going to start with questions from the board, and then we have 3 folks from the public so far. So Hector.
Hi, good evening, everybody. Happy New Year. Thank you, Joe. That was very enlightening. A lot of great information there. I just wanted to reiterate that places such as Fulton Houses and LA Chelsea, and I've mentioned this repeatedly before, are in dire need of recreation centers for the youth especially, and even the seniors as well, or the community in general, which you're all aware of. And this is an ideal space, especially the YMCA, the former YMCA section, an ideal space, not just for affordable housing, but basically for our recreation center for the community, to rival even the one at the Armory in Washington Heights, possibly, or compatible to that one. We have a really unique opportunity to do something great here that would enhance our community in many ways and make it more accessible to people who can't afford to go to Chelsea Piers, even though they offer scholarships, or who cannot fit their schedules to the local rec center and LA Chelsea, which we all know there's issues there constantly where children programs are being cut there, swimming programs are being cut as well. We need a space here for community where our youth and neighbors can go to and depend on desperately, because honestly, the neighborhood is gotten really dicey over the, all the crime rates and the shootings and everything. And why is that? Because we have folks who have been cooped up for so long because of COVID and other issues. And now they're out and about and they don't have a space to basically vent their, their anguish or their stress, basically, which is which would be a great way to channel it through sports and programs and enhance creativity for our youth, especially. Too many youth that fall through the cracks because there's not enough supportive housing. There is no Boys Club of America or Girls Club of America here on this side. The Police Athletic League has repeatedly tried to get programs and spaces here as well to promote programs for the youth. Boy Scouts of America, not here as well. This is a great opportunity for us to try to finally get this all centralized in maybe one building, okay? And who knows, maybe expand even more upon that. So I really hope that it's not just all about affordable housing, and I know we're in dire need of that, but let's face it, guys, we have a lot of affordable housing projects going throughout the city, okay? But we do not have enough spaces for the people living here or the people that have made this community great to enjoy themselves and enhance the community even more. So I really hope that you folks really re-emphasize more on a recreational space for the youth and our neighbors in the community.
Hector, I just want to note that for the public and the board members, this is a unique opportunity. There are double height spaces that comprise the gym and a double height space that is the pool. And they are in exceptionally good condition. This building, while empty, is not falling apart because it was built so solidly in 1931. So we really have an opportunity here to make something work.
Thanks, Hector. Paul?
Thanks, Jeffrey. And Joe, great presentation. Just to follow up on Hector's point really quickly, I recall that in 2013, we got the opportunity to review the various proposals that came through ESD. And one of the proposals that was not selected, not Novo, did offer a partnership with Hudson Guild as a partner in the community space. So perhaps we can make sure to track that aggressively as we go through the process. But Joe, I had two questions on the presentation itself. At Chelsea Land Use, ESD was not able to answer the question about current FAR. They talked about that it's 100,000 square feet of built space. Sub-area D has a different FAR restriction than sub-area E. So as we go through the process, I think we need to be careful that the annex building, which is in sub-area E, a little east and more away from the river, doesn't get all of the additional FAR if there is additional FAR added, because I think the FAR in sub-area E is lower than sub-area D, but they're proposing that sub-area D is the maximum they would allow, which is 7.5 FAR. So do you know what the current FAR is? First question. Second question is, in your proposal on slide 16, you offer approximately 70,000 square feet of usage to accommodate all of the demands of funny word of our housing plan. So that leaves about 30,000 square feet of space if it's not added to at all. So what do you have any thoughts on the FAR and the
so first and foremost, the building is actually overbuilt to the existing FAR.
In one area, but not the other, right? There's some that's overbuilt and some that's underbuilt.
No, well, the entire thing, if you take it in total, and it's all on one zoning lot, so it's overbuilt. So there'd be a question here, even without the zoning, the override of zoning by the state, because the majority of the building is in one zone. There could be an argument by any developer say that the largest footprint applies to the whole thing, right? I think there would be harder to say that the height could not apply, but I think the bulk would apply.
Yeah.
In any event, what we've learned since our tour, we believe the annex was built in 1951. It turns out it's built in 1931 concurrently with the building on 11th Avenue. So I think when we say minimal addition, that really is minimal. And we really tried to dissuade the state from anything that was any addition on the portion on 11th Avenue, because getting structure over a pool and a gym is quite complicated and quite costly. We, in our discussions with the state on the site, they said, well, the basketball court is not like a regulation size. We said, it's okay. It's a basketball court. It exists. And renovating that is going to be much more cost effective than moving it someplace else in a building like this. So I think, Paul, as we get down to this more and more, the community board actually provided HCR, Housing Community Renewal, and the Housing Development Corporation, the plans that we had of the base building. So they're doing an analysis right now. We expect to get the details of that at the Land Use Committee and the Housing Committee this month.
That'd be great. And as a follow-up to that, as I said on slide 16, you mentioned 70,000 square feet, leaving 30,000 square feet. Typically, as you know, we often request a percentage of permanently affordable, a percentage of this, a percentage of that. So perhaps in this one, we look at a higher percentage, because if they do use that 30,000 square feet of available square footage for market rate units.
I would say the committees are going to come down on 100% affordable housing. We are not looking at any market rate here whatsoever. I forgot to note that the state is actually allowing the applicants to apply to the state for supportive housing funds. So there is subsidy here, not the discussion we had for Slaughterhouse, for example. So we're starting out much further ahead. It doesn't mean that
that's because of indications from the state on that matter as well, that the expectation is there will not be market rate.
Okay, yeah, because that was not clear at Chelsea Land Use. And just one other bit of information for everybody, the state did say that they weren't going to charge the developer for the use of the space. So that saves the developers quite a bit of money, because they're not going to have to purchase or lease that building.
it will be a zero acquisition cost. So therefore, it's another subsidy beyond the capital subsidy for renovation. However, I want to note for the public and for the board, we will need further funds to renovate this community center portion, because that is an expensive thing to do. And we should be asking our elected officials as we go through this process to really pony up funds to help this project happen.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you very much. Good stuff.
Brad?
Back when Buffett's group presented, the board, as I recall, was more leaning towards a redevelopment of the annex and to keep the landmark other side towards the West Side Highway. So I still think we need to keep an open mind to that. I get what you're saying, Joe, but I think we could grab the bulk there, and that could be a very modern situation, and then we get what we want on the other side. I mean, we saw a lot of presentations on that. I know we're talking about the whole thing as one, but I think we need to think about that, and I don't want to close that door.
So
Because that allows us to get much more that we want community-wise on the other side.
So 2 issues on that. At that point in time, we believe the annex was built later, and now we know it's built at the exact same time by the same architect. And in fact, both have been deemed State Historic National Register eligible. So that changes the discussion a bit. So just keep that in mind. The second is, we talked a lot in Western Chelsea land use and in housing, very nervous about the slippery slope of market rate housing being put in here. And then it's going to really pull us into something where if you want X, then you have to have a tower for market rate housing. So just keep that in mind. I think we have an open mind here, but there's a lot to get through in the next month. Anything else, Brad?
Yeah, what I'm saying is, though, on that side, to keep the existing structure, we could go on top, to your point about not on the pool area and the other one. I just think we got to keep open mind. I think we're all in agreement with 100% affordable housing. So that's great. Thanks, gentlemen.
Thanks, Brad. Christine?
Clarification, Joe, terrific presentation, and very excited to see Bayview, moving, getting real. You said in one of the slides that you expect 115 permanently affordable units and additional capacity for mentally homeless. By additional capacity, you mean how many?
30.
30. So the total would be
145.
145. Okay.
I would say between 130 and 145, depending upon layouts, things like that. The building is at an interesting angle, which is what's for and against.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Christine. Dale?
Hi, everyone. Thanks, Joe, for the presentation. Yes, indeed. It's very exciting to see this. After Novo's boondoggle, I'm absolutely thrilled to see this being put forth as a potential affordable and supportive housing development. What's the question? And I'm absolutely in favor of preserving those elements of the building that you mentioned. What would be, I know this is like preliminary, but who would have access to the pool and gym under the schemes under consideration? Would it be exclusively the residents, or would it be like a facility where other people outside of the building could use it.
The community board has asked already this be a community facility. So
Community facility.
Yes, it'd be run in partnership with some sort of not-for-profit that would make sure there's full access by the community. So it's a true community facility, just like Chelsea Rec Center.
Fantastic. And, you know, just to reiterate that Chelsea Rec Center is walking distance from this facility. Yeah, which is like, you know, what I was a member, there was like $75 a year and they have a pool as well. So it would be this would be in another community facility towards recreation in addition to Chelsea Rec.
And
Right.
Dale, I just want to emphasize the fact that it is further south, bringing it closer to our friends at the Fulton Houses, who lack significantly in terms of community facility what the folks at Elliott Chelsea have, you know, in terms of the 26th Street offerings. And so this is a real, we hope, win for sort of that middle southern Chelsea portion where there's the vacancy right now.
Right. I'm thrilled to learn that it's a community facility. You know, it would be preserved. It would be accessible to the residents and to the community.
And
Yeah, it seems like win-win to me.
That's what
Thanks.
we're trying, Mr. Corvino. That's what we're trying for.
I love win-win. It doesn't.
Thank you, Dale. Betty?
I think that this project could be one of the most important projects that Chelsea could see in a long time. As described, has extraordinary opportunities. I think one should not forget about the outdoor roof space. That should be maybe in the slideshow. I don't know what, you know, there were all kinds of ideas in the past about that. I think that when it comes time for an RFP, we should be sure to participate on the draft RFP for this. And I would urge that we have at least one or two more tours of the building for board members and local neighborhood folks, because looking at the inside of the building is like a whole experience in and of itself. So I hope that could be arranged, and I think it would also foster an understanding and support by the local community. So I'm excited. Thank you.
Thanks, Betty. Viren?
Yeah, very quickly, Joe. I think most of my questions have already been answered. So I'll tell you to that. Two quick things that I'm going to request if we could sort of, I don't know exactly what the mechanism might be, but I think it will be very important to get the specifics from the state, because what they presented at CLU meeting was quite sort of all over the place. And that clarity is something that we should kind of preempt rather than wait for the RFP to come out. So if there's a way to write a letter to them or convey it to them in some form or the other, as to give us the specifics, no market rate housing, et cetera, et cetera. So that's one point, Joe.
Yeah, no, so actually it's the opposite. They're looking for specifics from us as a community. And we are working with them for the first time ever with Empire State Development Corporation on actually working on the provisions of the RFP. And that is the big change, as opposed to the last time. It was very open. We had a lot of issues. They chose really not to include them. This time we sense an ability that, number one, ESD is very willing and wanting to work with us. And number two, they brought in homes and community renewal. So they're doing it. They're actually doing this with people who finance housing all the time. So right. Think about that. The idea of putting it together, I think we hope to have a really good outcome from here. So it's the exact opposite. They want us to say, what do we want? And then we're going to see how much we can get in terms of figuring out the RFP. But we're going to write it together.
And just to, sorry,
go ahead. Good.
To sort of, you know, we convened in December. Joe, Jessica, and I convened in person around a conference table with paper and cups of water, et cetera, and with folks from the Empire State Development Corporation, as well as, you know, our local state electeds and city electeds to really get this going. So this
NHCR.
In DHCR, exactly. And so as Joe mentioned, we are in a much better position in terms of helping to inform the RFP before it's released, which we've found much more success comes from being a part of the phase then, as opposed to being reactive once that document's already sort of been baked.
Thank you. I think that's great news. The second point that I was going to make is going back to what Hector was talking about. We have a sort of significant number of housing, NYCHA residents in the community. programmatically, if there's a way to sort of insert a component that targets youth from Fulton houses, that would be something very important. And second last point that I want to make is we have so many technology companies in our district, Google, Facebook, Twitter, you name it. Maybe this could be some sort of community component that kind of focuses on technology hub for the youth, particularly from Niger. I think that would be something fantastic.
Those initiatives exist in a certain way with Fulton already, but I think we should bake them into this and talk about how they can be extended. That'd be great.
That's good. Thank you.
Thanks, Viren. We have 3 members of the public who I want to invite up to speak, who signed up to speak on this. Miguel Acevedo, Jennifer McGuire, and Marilyn Rivera. Oh, Brad, is your hand back up?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Thanks, Jeffrey. I just wanted to say, I know we're talking about affordable housing with supportive needs and services, but I don't want to let the governor off the hook where it could be done over at Penn Station. And I think we also got to keep an open mind to affordable housing for young people. I mean, I just think we keep talking about other services for mentally ill, but I think the Penn Station that's the spot. And this should be initiative, something to be an open mind to more youth housing. So I just wanted to say that. And Viren, yeah, we talked about the technology side before with the last developer a few years ago. I like that idea. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Brad. David will have the final comment or question as a board member, and then we're going to public. David?
Hi, yeah, thank you. I actually tried to sign up to speak from the public because I want to represent Save Chelsea, of which I'm also a member, but I didn't hear my name called.
David, if you'll indulge me then, because I announced members of the public already, if you're gonna take your CB hat off and do Save Chelsea, if you don't mind, I'd like to take the others I called first, and then we'll add you to the list if that's okay.
That's good.
Perfect, thank you.
Also, Jeffrey, can you include Pam Wolf? She had a hard time signing up too.
Sure, if Pam can raise her hand, that way Jesse can bring her, I see her hand now, so Jesse can bring her over as well. So we'll start with Miguel, followed by Jennifer, and then Marilyn, David, and then Pam. I saw Miguel's hand before.
Yeah, he should be here.
He's there. I saw him.
Hey, Jeffrey, while you're looking at Brad, I want to say one more thing. Maybe we should call it the Bayview Godfrey Center. I'm serious.
Well, we're calling it Bayview Chelsea, so it doesn't just become Bayview.
I believe Marilyn Rivera is here. I don't know if Miguel has come over yet.
Yes, Miguel's here.
Okay.
Miguel, if you can unmute. No, I don't see him in the.
He's gone again. I saw him a minute ago.
Okay, Marilyn?
He's here. I just don't know why he's not. I don't think he has visual, unfortunately.
Miguel apparently is having trouble talking for some reason.
Hi, Happy New Year, I'm Marilyn Rivera. I think this is a great, amazing project. I'm in mental health services. I've been a social worker for over 30 years. And I believe everything that you said about the youth. I was even thinking about avenues to school, how to bring them in to enhance the youth participation in this project. I think it's an amazing project. I think that there are glitches to work out, but overall it sounds amazing. And I grew up in the projects on the Lower East Side. There was a community center that was used by the whole 10 building community. So I think that this will be great, especially in this era of shootings and COVID, after COVID trauma.
Thanks, Marilyn. Miguel,
can you hear me?
We can, go ahead.
Okay, sorry about that. My mute button wasn't working.
Okay.
So I don't, for the people that don't know me, I'm Miguel Acevedo, the TA president here at Fulton Houses. Happy New Year to everyone. You know, everything that was said is true. Here at Fulton Houses, we have zero, like Jeffrey said. There's no gym, there's no pool, there's no activities for the children at Fulton Houses or even the senior citizens. We have a senior center, but it's a 9 to 5 event for the seniors to participate in. My kids here at Fulton been begging for a community center for them to go to play basketball, to go swimming. So I am so highly in supportive of a community space here for giving the opportunity for the Fulton Tenant Association and its residents to participate. Joe also mentioned about a kitchen being there. We can set up some type of kitchen training program because there's restaurants going up all over Chelsea for the youth here to participate in also. So thank you for letting me speak and have a nice night, everyone.
Miguel, thank you so much. And thank you in particular for bringing in the workforce development factor to the program, which is a word we left out. So thank you for that and good to see you.
Thank you.
Is Jennifer here, Jesse?
I did not see Jennifer. So
Okay.
I think we can move on to David or Pam.
Yep, David and then Pam. David?
Hi, again, as I said, I'm speaking for Save Chelsea. We're completely on board with the community board in calling for the building to be only affordable housing and supportive housing with no market rate component. And we're very concerned about replacement of the historic terracotta that was removed over the past year. Our understanding is that ESD commissioned a study from a preservation firm that calls for replacing it with cast stone rather than with terracotta. The standard of care for a landmark quality building like this is replacement with terracotta with terracotta. We want to make sure that happens. And we also are unhappy that ESD plans to have the winner of the RFP do the replacement work rather than doing it themselves. We'd like it to be done as soon as possible. To kick it down the road, who knows if it'll ever be done. And the longer we go without that terracotta being put back in place, the greater the likelihood it'll never go back. So those are primary concerns of Save Chelsea. I'll hand off to Pamela now.
Thanks, David. Pamela?
Hi, everybody. Thank you. This is indeed the biggest, most exciting thing that can happen for Chelsea for the last decade easily. I am a little cynical, as some of you may know, and I'm a little pessimistic about how warmly the community is going to accept this facility as it is, as we are talking about it. We have some wonderful, warm, rosy, glowing hopes for this. And frankly, the lack of response from the community so far, even though we did our best in the community to publicize this event right now, tonight, I don't think the word is getting out there. We've had some press, the local press has carried something about it. I'm very skeptical. I think we should prepare ourselves for a juggernaut of local opposition. And I don't know how we do that. Maybe we enlist our electeds, but this is just a word of warning. I can see it coming. I can feel it in my bones.
Well, Pamela, I guess I would emphasize that it was brought up in new business in November at both Chelsea Land Use and the Housing Committee. It was formally listed on the Housing Committee and Chelsea Land Use Committees at our December meeting. We are holding this public hearing here this evening. It will also be again on the Housing Committee's agenda and the Chelsea Land Use agenda. And then given that we anticipate writing a letter, which we would then transmit to the state, that letter would be out for draft and public review in advance of our February full board meeting, at which time, of course, we would welcome comments at the public session. And so, I definitely appreciate, I've known you for a long time, so the pessimism is there.
Yes, you have.
And you're right.
Okay. Can I
to
just say,
raise the concern.
everything-
It's certainly useful to hear it this evening.
Can I just say, everything that you've just described is internal to the community board and not outreach to people who never heard of CB4 or any other community board. There is a vast population of newbies These are new people in the community, particularly on the far west side. They don't know we exist as a community board. Somehow there has to be a way to get these people to understand that community boards exist and what their function is. I don't know how you go about that, but it needs to happen. I've run into this, as you all may know, having to do with the open street on 22nd Street. People show up and they gripe and they carry on. They never heard of CB4. They say, well, nobody told us. Well, how do we tell them?
Again, you are by no means incorrect, but what I would say also is that beyond the work that the board does, we know that many folks click forward on emails, and we hope that that's what continues to happen. With issues like this and others, of course. So unfortunately, we can't do it alone. And look, we do have our elected officials very much involved and in support of this. So I think it's appropriate for you to have raised that tonight. We can certainly encourage them to perhaps mention it in the newsletters that they have coming out in the month ahead as well.
I just want to note, being the eternal optimist as the yang to Pam's yin, we put together Chelsea NYCHA renovation for Elliott Chelsea and for Fulton. And the board played a central role in that. And we're not going to give up on this, because I really believe the final piece of Chelsea NYCHA is getting a good, solid recreation center for Fulton, besides affordable housing. We have a bunch of wins already. Let's start out with that. The building is now at zero acquisition. Therefore there's subsidy in the land. The building will receive subsidy for the affordable housing from the state. Number two, we just got to figure out a way to get some subsidy in for that community center, and our elected officials will be knocking on their doors about this, because this is a very serious thing to do. We're starting so much better than we were in 2013. So Pam, you've been through it about 40 years. We spent another like 15 years before. So here we are again. This is the time to go. So let's give it a go.
It's more like 60 years.
Well,
all right, 60, give it to
but
me.
who's counting, Ms. Wolf? So thank you for being here this evening, and for your comments. And we appreciate the red flags, of which we will continue to be diligent about and work through accordingly on this important but really sensitive matter as well.
And we in the community will continue to put the word out as much as we can to our own list, our block association list, the council Chelsea Block Association's list, to reach out to the residents.
Thank you. We appreciate that. I have no other speakers in the queue, and those 4 hands that are up from earlier in the meeting. So I want to go to Carrie, who's another member who's co-chair of CLU. Carrie, did you have anything to add or comments given your participation and as co-chair of CLU? You were on my squares and now you're gone. That's why
I'm here.
There you are.
Yeah, hi. No, Happy New Year, everyone. I think it's pretty well covered. We do have some further answers on, like Paul, you mentioned questions about FAR, and we can talk about those again at Chelsea Land Use. I do think that, we, having not talked to Joe, and maybe he knows something I don't know, or we don't know, but that they are looking to increase the FAR to 7.5, and they are considering those lots to be sub area D, both of them.
Yeah,
so they're going
that's
to fold
what
it in.
They proposed. There have been no actions at all.
Yeah, there have been no actions. So, but I think that is something that we need to keep, pushing to make sure that we don't get a building that's twice this, or one, whatever, that would 50% bigger.
Right.
So that's all, but I think we're all very excited about this, and totally on board with all the comments that we've heard and pushing for a community center. It's going to be great.
Thank you, Carrie. I saw one fresh hand, and then I'm going to call this hearing closed. Jesse, if we could bring over Christine McVeigh.
Doing so now.
Katie, is your comment quick?
Yeah, and actually it's more a question.
Okay.
So maybe Joe knows this, or I don't know who knows, and it was triggered by something Brad said. Is the affordable housing that's being proposed at Bayview somehow related to or limiting what we are hoping would be affordable housing as other parts of the Penn project? Or is it unrelated?
This was, Joe, if I can speak to this, because I was on the working group.
I know.
So, yeah. No, this was a surprise that in addition to the affordable units as a part of the GPP in the Penn project, right? Is the mapped area around Penn Station. This was in addition to those numbers and very specifically for supportive housing.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, it was a surprise and we're happy so far.
Exactly, a pleasant one. Jesse, can we bring Christine over?
She declined, so I'm
okay.
She's ready for the public session.
We'll leave it at that then. And I really want to thank Joe and Carrie and Jessica and Maria and the Housing Committee and of course the Chelsea Land Use Committee. I would note that this discussion will continue and we're asking the committees to come up with a letter that we can then transmit to the state and vote on at our February full board meeting. So I'm sure there will be more of this to come at next month, but thanks to everybody for the comments, questions, and the appropriate criticisms this evening. So moving forward on our agenda, which means I have to find our tab, is my tabs, the public session. Madam First Vice Chair, just a couple of things I wanted to run through. As I mentioned, we have 30 speakers signed up. I know there's 5 hands up now, so if those folks are not in the clue, we'll add them. But if you already signed up, you're on the list. So please do not raise your hand if you signed up in advance already. And Jessica, I pass it over to you for the ground rules and to begin the public session.
Great, thank you, Jeffrey. Because this evening we have well over 30 people signed up for the public session and primarily on topics that we covered pretty extensively at our last meeting, we're going to limit everyone's comments to 1 minute. So I'm just going to ask in advance that everyone, I'm going to set the timer, you'll hear the buzzer. Please, heed that and keep your comments brief as we, as I mentioned, have a lot to get through. So we're going to start this evening with Joan Curtin, maybe Sister Joan Curtin, followed by Shelley Rosen, and then Rosalie Regal.
I don't have Joan. I do have Shelley and the third person you mentioned. So they
Great. So then we can, after that, maybe bring over Ari Martin. But Shelley, I don't see you. Do you hear us?
Yes, I do. Do you hear me?
We hear you. Your minute's going to start right now. Go ahead.
Okay, great. I just want to say that I encourage everybody not to amend the letter written by the WPE, which I think was written in bad faith and does not represent the facts of the situation and does not represent the community. And it certainly does not take seriously the needs of the elderly and disabled residents who said they're unable to walk to the dog runs at Waterside Park and Madison Square Park. Accessibility for disabled and elderly residents is a serious issue that the WP chose to ignore. And I think that in describing the interests of the community, and they use the term convenience. It's more than convenience. It's an issue of accessibility. And they really highlighted the needs of a few residents in adjacent buildings who complained, and they didn't mention even, let alone weigh, the testimony and letters of similarly situated residents who said they're not bothered by the noise, and they didn't mention the sheer number of supporters there were or tried to accommodate them. And I think they had a clear bias, and that I urge the full board to amend the letter and not endorse it. And I think it really will undermine the authority of the and the credibility of the CB, who should really investigate why such biased decision-making that was really devoid of an honest representation of the facts. Thank you.
Thank you, Shelley. Thank you. We're going to move to Rosalie, followed by Ari.
Yes, Rosalie Regal, old. I live in Penn South and overlook the dog run. The noise is horrendous. It is a ludicrous idea to come up with a dog run in the middle of the Penn South building. Additionally, Eric Botcher, we invited him to one of our events in June,
And I confronted Eric about his idea for this dog run, and he denied that it was his idea and said that it was the chairs, the chairman of Community Board 4. So he lied. And I do believe that he's in it for the votes. That's what I think. And it is just horrendous, not able to function. I am unable to read. I'm unable to write up, unable to think. The noise goes right up. You cannot believe how horrible it is, and should not be there. And I'm very happy you voted against it being there. And we do not want to wait for a new area to be set up. We want it gone as soon as possible. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rosalie. Thank you. Jesse, I don't think we have Ari, or do we?
We do not have Ari. I believe we have Susan over.
Great. Susan?
Nope, hold on. I'm sorry, she didn't come over. Let me try it again. Okay, she's joining now. Sorry.
Thank you. No problem. Susan, are you with us?
Okay. I think that's working. Okay.
Yeah, we hear you now.
Okay.
For a minute, we'll start.
Okay. Good evening. As a resident of Penn South who faces the dog park, I want to say thank you to the WPE committee for voting to recommend closing the dog park now and for supporting efforts to find an alternative location. At the last WPE meeting, several of the members spoke of including a dog park in the redesign. I want to say right now that it won't work without some real scientific measures to control the noise. The current sign, which says, please control barking, respect our neighbors, has not worked in the past, didn't work this afternoon, and will not work in the future. No enforcement and no consequences, which is what making the dog park permanent would mean, results in even more barking. Also, how much of what is supposed to be a playground for children with disabilities are you willing to relinquish for a playground for dogs? Please approve the committee's draft letter recommending the dog park be closed now and find a more appropriate nearby location that is not in the middle of a residential complex. Thank you for letting me speak. And yes to Bayview, Chelsea. Thanks.
Thank you, Susan. Thank you. I think we have Deborah.
I don't have Deborah. Moving on to Rita.
Wait, Deborah's in our panelists already.
Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize, Deborah. I'm moving too quickly.
No problem. Deborah, do we have you?
Hi, yes. Can you hear me?
We can hear you. We can see
Okay.
you. Your minute will start.
Great.
Go ahead.
Okay. Hi, I live in Penn South above and facing the dog park. I represent over 100 Penn South residents and all the nuns of St. Columbus. All of us are directly affected and want the Penn South dog park closed as promised now that the Chelsea water site has reopened. My petition is verifiable according to the WPE guidelines and includes names, addresses, and signatures of Penn South residents only. I sent the board the petition and also a letter from the nuns. In walking door to door in my community to obtain my signatures from my neighbors, they told me of their concerns and frustrations. They told me about the loud barking, which awakened them every morning, of not being able to work or concentrate at home, of being deprived of the peaceful enjoyment of their homes. One elderly resident kissed my hand because she was so grateful that I listened to her frustrations and would communicate for her to the proper people. So many of our residents are elderly and have no idea who to complain to or how to complain. Also, the elderly infirm told me that they do not go to the Penn South Dog Park as they're afraid of being knocked over or having their dogs trampled by the other dogs that are wildly running around. Please close the dog park. Thank you.
Thank you. Jesse, do we have Karen?
I did not see Karen. I did have Deborah. Right?
Oh,
No.
we just did Deborah.
Rita.
Yeah, we should. So we should. Oh, here's Rita. Rita, and then we'll have Margaret Kelly.
Thank you so much. Thank you to everyone for hearing our concerns. I fully supported this dog run for the dogs to go and play. Can you hear me?
Sorry, we can hear you. We were just losing. Go ahead. You can start from the top.
Okay, thank you. Thank you to everyone for hearing our concerns. I fully supported this dog run for the dogs to go and play as it was presented to me as a temporary solution until the other parks were finished construction. As a resident of Penn South who faces this park, my quality of life has been negatively impacted on a daily basis. This location is not situated where barking from dogs can dissipate from the noise. It is nestled between two buildings and the noise has nowhere to go but up. Please consider who is complaining and where we live. We are not anti-dog people. I support dog runs, but not in the backyards of our homes. People come to the location with their dogs and then they leave. We can't leave. We live here. We're not asking for anything more than what we all want and deserve in our homes. And that is a peaceful place to live, which we do not have anymore. Thank you again, everybody. I truly appreciate you listening to our concerns.
Thank you, Rita. Jesse, do we have Margaret Kelly?
Yes, we do.
Great. And then I don't see Jeff, so I think Inga might be next. Margaret?
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you now.
Okay, thank you. First of all, your presentation on Bayview was great. I'm really excited. I think it's wonderful. I only have a couple of things to talk about, and one is because of having a master's degree in common good versus the universal. I think there are a lot less people who benefit from this than people who are complaining about it, and I am one of the people who was complaining about it. I live in building 4. When the barks go on, it goes on incessantly, incessantly, incessantly. It really does affect our quality of life. We also have a power station here, and no one has mentioned that. We listen to the power station all summer long. So we have barking and power and barking and power. I think an alternative over there on 28th Street should be looked into. It's horrific. The barking is really, really bad. And I thank you for listening to me. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Margaret. We'll go to, excuse me, we'll go to Inga, followed by Tom Lundqvist. Inga, are you with us?
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you now.
Perfect. Okay. I'm here to talk about the open streets, which is really closed street because of the barricades on 22nd Street between 7th and 8th, and would like you all to really think about removing the barricades completely until a study has been done. There's a large majority of the community on 22nd Street itself that's opposed to the barricades. The barricades are a hindrance. You'll see in the documents, the supporting documents. I don't think the barricades should be there until a study has been done by DOT. Just recently, fire engines, again this weekend, this past week, went through there and they actually jumped out of the truck, through the barricades, through the air, onto the sidewalk, and they stayed there for a while. And then they still had a hard time coming around the planters that have been placed on the corners. The fire truck barely fit through. So this is not the first time. I know it says that there are 150 block association members. There are people that have been trying to join the block association since 2019. They have yet to be entertained membership. I don't think 150 members are on that block association. I think
we're after time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. We'll go to Tom and then Jesse. I think we have to jump over to Bobby.
Yep.
Okay. Can you hear me?
We can. Go ahead, Tom. Your minute starts.
Okay, thank you. I hope everyone had a wonderful holiday season. Thank you, Community Board 4, and specifically the Transportation Planning Committee for your diligence and support of our West 22nd Open Street Community Visioning Workshop and final report. Our findings and suggestions have expanded the discussion on how to remake our public streets into relaxing and experiential open space. The more streets we have dedicated to neighborhood strolling and socializing, the stronger our local health and economy will be. Thank you to Councilman Eric Botcher, Jordan Feiner, the fire, police, sanitation, and delivery workers for continuing to support our efforts. Finally, a special thank you to all the participants and volunteers of the workshop whose input helped shape our 114-page visionary report. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we'll go to Bobby from New York City Parks.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Bobby Vangelatos. I'm the center manager at the Chelsea Recreation Center. I just wanted to talk this evening about 3 events that we have this month, free open to the public. The first one is this Sunday, January 8th from 3 to 5 p.m. We're hosting a clinic led by the New York Knicks staff and with an appearance from a special guest. This is open for youth ages 7 to 17, and they're going to have the chance to work on drills and learn different fundamentals of the game. Again, it's free and open to the public. The other 2 events are for adults. We have on Friday, January 13th from 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. a glow-in-the-dark pickleball event. So pickleball is fun all the time, but it's even better when it's under the lights and in neon colors. And then along the same theme, Friday, January 27th from 6 to 7:30, we're going to have a glow-in-the-dark fitness circuit event. So we're going to do a circuit training of various fitness stations and then a spin bike session as well. So if you're interested in any of these, or you want to take a look at our new classes that we have this session, we have everything from toddlers to youth to seniors. Give us a call or check our website. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Bobby. Love the updates. We're going to go, I think we'll go to Stephen and then Molly Harris.
Okay, yeah, I just wanted to talk a little bit about the dog run. Also, look, I work for parks, as I was saying the last thing. I also work. There's no park like this. We have 84 dog runs. We have 7 of them are concrete. None of them have no water. None of them are. You could talk more to have a fixed post. None of them don't have a fixed post person. This, aside from the fact that I live in Building 4, and this is just like driving me nuts. I mean, the noise is, if I had to compare, some people say it's a little noise, but a little noise, I mean, imagine like, it's death by 1,000 paper cuts. It's like a dripping machine. I guess a more politically correct way of saying that would have been Chinese water torture at another time and place. What is a little noise? What is a lot of a little noise? It's a lot of noise, and it's a lot of noise. And this doesn't have to be sonic youth at CBGBs. It's crazy. It drives people nuts. There's no precedent anywhere in parks for a dog run of this size, of not being irrigated, of not having fixed, permanent employees in the parks. It's really just not a place for it. That's my contribution. Thank you, folks, for listening.
Thank you, Stephen. We'll go to Molly Harris, followed by Aaron Schwartz.
Thank you. You can hear me okay? Good.
We can hear you.
Okay, great. Thanks. My comment today will address the item 14, West 22nd Street, Open Street. First, I want to thank Pamela Wolf and Sally Greenspan for meeting with us, a few of us, on November 16th to discuss the open street for West 22nd Street. One concession Pamela offered was limiting the open street designation from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. He also spoke of how she was seeking help with the Block Association because she was the only officer and none of the quote 135 members on her email list are as involved anymore. In fact, she said that she had not discussed the open street program with her members in quite some time. I am appreciative, though, of the attention the Community Board 4 has had in addressing the urgent concerns of 250 of my neighbors who have signed a petition asking for the barriers to be taken away and equal access to the street be returned. Allowing a solution for people to remain safely in their cars and during a more limited period of time is a fair compromise. I ask that moving forward, members of Community Board 4 give courteous consideration to the concerns of their constituents, regardless of what side of the debate they are on. Thank you very much. And yes to Bayview. I love it.
Thank you, Molly. Thank you. Double whammy here, getting so much feedback. We'll go to Aaron Schwartz and then Pamela Wolf.
Hi, I'm Aaron Schwartz. Can you hear me?
We can hear you, Aaron. Your minute starts.
Thank you.
I'm an architect and urban designer with over 40 years of experience designing civic projects in the public realm in New York City. I've also been living on 22nd Street for over 30 years. I am in full support of a study for a shared street program that benefits the entire neighborhood, not a single block, but it's looked at as a holistic community analysis. At the committee meeting, which I participated in, it was clear from all sides and all parties that the current barrier does not work. The closed barrier and gate is a problem and it's unsafe. So I believe it is really critically important that the community board consider recommending that the barrier be immediately removed, and while any analysis for a shared street program be continued. If there is any interim measure for traffic calming, then I believe that really needs to be designed by professionals who know how to do that in the best interests of sharing street between pedestrian and vehicle. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Aaron. We'll go to Pamela, followed by Melody Bryant, and then Barack Friedman.
Well, hello again. I'm a little taken aback by what I perceive as actual attacks from Inga and from Molly about the existence of the Chelsea West 200 Block Association, which has been around since 1976 and has certainly had its ups and downs, but has survived through all of that with a very healthy list of membership. I reach out frequently to those members and introduce all sorts of information from the community, with events and things going on in this community to them. I think it serves a major advantage for the community to have that existing. In any case, I think the conversation about the Block Association should be had with CCBA and in another venue, not this one necessarily. I would like to say that there was one letter that I saw recently from Louis Friedman. He said that a thoughtful, logical, and complete assessment of the vehicular and pedestrian patterns in the whole area is required. I must say, I totally agree. And I have a strange feeling that even though we are all more or less on the same page, we are still at loggerheads. Some people are very verbal in their dislike of the barriers. I can't tell you how much I agree with disliking the barriers. I prefer to call them gates since they do move and get out of the way. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Melody?
Thank you. And thank you to the board for taking my testimony today. I'd like to also speak on West 22nd Open Street. It's been a really exciting time for public space in Chelsea, and it's been great to coalesce with the community on a project that speaks to the future of the city as a whole. We look forward to working with the DOT on funding for programming and implementation of options A and B that came out of the report from our October community visioning workshop. These alternatives offer both traffic calming, more greenery, and obviate the need for barricades on our open street. And so these are redesigns that our workshop showed will be welcomed by the community at large. We're energized to take this promising vision forward. I'd like to thank our dedicated volunteers on the ground, and thanks also to CheckPeds, our sponsors and retailers, and especially the support of Community Board 4. Thank you.
Thank you, Melody. We're going to go to Mr. Friedman, followed by Cecil.
Oh, hey, CB4, thanks for the time to speak. I'll keep it quick. I'm a huge supporter of the 22nd Street Open Street. I support the redesign. I support more greenery. I support the slow speeds. I've been hearing that it's dangerous, but I would love to see data on that because I think it's one of the safest streets in Chelsea. If the car speeds slower, it's just safer. So for anybody saying it's dangerous, I would have to see a data on that. So in summary, I'm a huge supporter of 22nd Street Open Street. Thank you.
Thank you. Jesse, am I right that I don't see Cecil?
Yeah, I didn't have Cecil before. I don't see him now. So
Okay, so we'll go to Miriam Fisher.
Okay. I'm changing the direction of the conversation. It's about safety and the traffic in Chelsea. There was a letter March 2021 from CB4 Community Board to DOT head at Pinkar about re-examining the traffic lights on 8th and 9th Avenue with concern about safety and the bicycles on the street, red lights. I recently sent, and I got finally got an answer from him, and I sent it to the signatures on the letter, Christine Birthday and Dale Carvino, and also Jesse Bodine and Jeffrey LeFrancois. But just to very quickly hash it out, what is the next step? This is the letter from Ed Pinkar. It's about 3 sentences, so I would like to read it for the people who aren't aware. We have worked with Community Board 4 to install leading pedestrian intervals at many crossings, and would be happy to evaluate additional locations if you feel you need them. The green wave request was trickier as we need to time our signals, and not only for cyclists and vehicles, but for pedestrians as well. I will loop back with my signal unit to continue the conversation. What's the next step?
Thank you, Miriam. I'm going to suggest that this is something that go to the committee, and we can share with you. I believe we have your email from your sign up. We can share with you the date of the next meeting where this can be addressed. And I'm getting a thumbs up from Christine, and though I don't see, and Dale, thank you. And so we'll be sure that you're connected there for their next meeting. We'll move now to Dylan Kennedy.
Dylan declined.
Okay. So sorry, you're probably ahead of me, Jesse. I don't see Andrew, I don't think.
I am here.
Oh, great. Oh, sorry, Andrew. Great, your minute starts now.
Cool. Just wanted to speak out in favor of a better, not only 22nd Street, but I think if, for those who kind of walk all over the city and been around, I feel like in general, the sidewalks of Chelsea, just walking around, are some of the worst areas to walk around. Those sidewalks are super narrow and you're hedged in by cars a lot. It's I really think Chelsea needs to do a better job of rethinking the streets, rethinking the design. The current implementation of West 22nd Street certainly is, not ideal, but it's a start, and I hope we can continue quickly without excessive analysis. Trying out things and seeing what works and moving on from the current state, which I think is just not working that well. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. I think
we have Dylan now, Jessica.
Great. Okay, we'll do Dylan, and then I think next will be Jane Darcy.
Hi, my name is Dylan, and I work in the area, and I really like having the open West 22nd Street. We've been hearing some of the complaints about the current situation, but I fully support and want to lend my voice in support of the proposals A and B that the community board is pushing for and supporting, so that long term it can get to a calmer, safer, and more enjoyable street. Thank you very much.
Great. I think we might have lost you there at the end, but also sounded like that was the end of your remarks. So thank you, Dylan. Oh, Dylan, are you there?
Yeah, that was the end of my remarks.
Okay, great. Sorry. Thank you very much. You're breaking up a little bit, but I think we're good. I think we got it. Thank you.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Thank you. Jane, followed by Albert.
I've asked Jane a number of times and she's declined. So
okay.
We do have Muriel Rivera. I don't know, but I know she spoke earlier, but I'm not sure if she's also here for the dog run thing.
Okay, sorry. So Marilyn, do you want to speak on the dog run?
Yes, I do.
Okay, great. Go ahead. Your minute starts.
Thank you all for listening to our complaints. Thank you for keeping it temporary. As promised, My fear of walking through there is still very real. The noise is it's just horrific. My mental health, as I said before, I've been in mental health, and I recalculated. It's not 30 years; it's been 40 years that I've been in mental health, and my mental health is definitely being affected by the constant noise. And it may not be constant to the few of you or the those who are there for a few minutes, but it's constant for us who live here. I live in building 3, where there are 2 dogs that are constantly barking, and then they leave, and then 2 other dogs come in, and then 4 dogs come in, and then 10 dogs come in. It's just way too much. It's just a nightmare, to say the least. But I want to thank you all for listening.
Thank you, Marilyn. Albert, followed by Lydia.
Hello, my name's Albert Taylor. I'm a 43-year resident of West 20th Street. I'm speaking about 22nd Street closure. I would love to have all of Chelsea be a lovely green space, but with the closure of 22nd Street and the restrictions on 14th and 23rd, there are only 2 eastbound streets between 14th Street and 26th Street that are not restricted. And the pushing traffic from 22nd Street to 20th Street to avoid the things that they want to avoid is wrong. The draft letter is commendable at item number 14 in that it calls for a study and moving towards a shared street concept, which does permit some through traffic, although discouraging it, and making it more equitable if the nearby alternative routes have some protection from receiving the increased traffic. Therefore, I request that the board consider amending the paragraph at lines 36 and 37 to request that a solution that is not only, quote, equitable for all street users, but also equitable for the residents of the neighboring streets threatened with increased traffic. I think this is very important because this is just not fair. It's not right to knowingly push traffic to somebody else that you don't want.
Thank you, Albert. Thank you for your comments. Lydia, followed by Margaret Kelly. Oh, I didn't see Margaret, so I think it might be Richard. But Lydia, are you with us?
Can you hear me?
We can hear you now.
Okay, great. Like Albert, I live on 20th Street, and I spent the 4+ hours listening to the transportation meeting on December 21st. I appreciate the forbearance of the people on that committee, but I was left really perplexed with how the decision-making recommendation worked, because it seemed to me that time and time again, people made the point that the few on 22nd were benefiting, but the rest of us who now have increased traffic on our streets are at a disadvantage. And so I don't understand the concepts behind choosing one street, one winner, and letting the rest of us deal with it. Where do people think the traffic goes when it doesn't go on 22nd Street? As Albert mentioned, there are only 2 other eastbound streets that are not obstructed in some way, and we are having a terrible time on 20th Street. I don't think these decisions can be made, although I am in favor of them conceptually, until we have data points that help us understand the impact, not just for the people on 22nd Street, but for the rest of us. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go to Richard.
He's coming over now.
Great. And followed by Joe Newhouse and then Jim Berg. Richard, do we have you? I see the senator waiting so patiently. Richard, are you with us?
Richard,
hello.
There we go.
Okay, we hear you now, Richard. Your minute starts. Go ahead.
Great. Well, this is a different topic completely. I just wanted to speak about the bikes on the sidewalk issue, to let you know that we were organizing as the block association, 47, 48th Street, trying to mobilize the other block associations. We've been working on this for the last 4 or 5 months. We've spoken with Christine and Dale, and they were a wealth of information. And CheckPeds has an enormous amount of information on their website. In short, we are appalled at the bikes on the sidewalks, which is almost all delivery people. And we are going to be working very hard with the Transportation Committee to bring this matter to you in the hopes that we can get some resolution. Happy New Year, and thank you very much for your work.
Thank you. We'll go to Joe Newhouse. And then Jim Burke.
I don't know if Joe accepted. I've invited him a couple of times. I think.
Okay, do we have Jim over?
Yeah, Jim should be over.
Yeah. Okay, Jim, why don't we start with you and we'll figure it out, and then we'll just bring over the last 2 people with their hands raised. They had signed up prior to us starting. Go ahead, Jim.
You can hear me?
We can hear you. Go ahead.
So I just wanted to say I love the open street, 22nd Street. I think we need much more areas in Chelsea that are quiet, that are without traffic. Just before the pandemic, I've worked just a few blocks away, and there's like maybe one. I have to look for a publicly open private pop to actually sit and get some quiet or walk. It's so noisy with the traffic. I think that we have to really work hard to make more open streets, slow streets, traffic calming. Most of the people who live and work there do not drive. But we have to hear traffic noise, be subjected to gigantic SUVs barreling down the streets. We really need a nice place to be able to walk, to not hear traffic. So I'm 100% for this. And I think that based on some of the other callers, maybe there should be more open streets to be more fair, but you definitely have to start somewhere. And this has been a great effort. And I really applaud the volunteers.
Thank you. Thank you, Jim.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Do we have Joe now?
Yeah, Joe joined us.
Okay, great.
Thank you very much. I wanted to thank the Transportation Planning Committee for its thoughtful attempt to address an interim solution for West 22nd Street. It's not what we wanted, but I think it's a reasonable interim solution. As for the letter to the DOT, the letter endorses choosing West 22nd Street as a street to run this experiment. And that seems to me to be premature. And I urge the community board to take a more neutral stance with respect to the choice of a block to choose. And that I also support Albert Taylor's remarks and the other comments of the person from West 20th Street. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We'll go to Ludmila, followed by Elizabeth, and then Lisa Wager, and that will be the end of our public session.
And coming over now. Lisa, you might want to start with Lisa. She came over first.
Okay, Lisa, you with us? I'm sorry, we're limiting today to 1 minute, but go ahead.
That works perfectly because I'm homesick, but I can't miss a community board 4 meeting. So I just wanted to say Happy New Year, and I'll be back with an FIT report in February.
Okay, Happy New Year, Lisa. We'll go to Ludmila. Oh, you unmuted yourself? Yep, there we go.
Okay.
We hear you.
I will talk about dog park. Firstly, I would like to thank the WPE committee and NYC Park Department for hearing our concern and recommending closing the dog run, which is affecting the quality of life of people residing in apartments facing 25th Street. The fact is that the dogs are not just running in the space, but fighting and barking a lot. The barking sounds very loud because it echoes between walls and sound become much louder. Supporters of this park said that we are exaggerating situation and that barking is not loud and not constant, but it's not true. They cannot say if it's allowed or not because they are not spending there all day. Just sometimes with dogs they love. And maybe sometimes we are lucky to have a few minutes break between barks during the day, but it's so difficult to function, work, and live normally when you hear barking again, again, and then again. Please relocate this park.
Thank
We
you.
deserve and live normal habitat. Thank you.
Thank you, Lumila. We'll go to Elizabeth.
Hello, I'm Elizabeth Van Dyke. Thank you so much for allowing me to speak. I am the producing artistic director of New Federal Theater, and we have met with Community Board for Arts and Cultural Committee, who have voted so generously to support us in our effort for space in the Midtown area. We are residing at 543 West 42nd Street, where we produce plays and have been doing so for over 53 years, founded by New Federal Woody King Jr. And our space is up for sale and in negotiation. So we are in need of a performing arts space, a theater, offices. And so you will be voting this evening on a letter that is composed by the Arts and Cultural Committee. And I am just humbly asking you to support us in our effort. Art is vital. Art is healing. Art helps us identify who we are and brings in pieces of ourselves. So I would tell you much more about New Federal Theater if I had more time, but I just wanted to humbly thank you for hearing me, and thank you, and help.
Thank you. Thank you, Elizabeth. Thank you for coming, for sticking through with us. And thank you all for keeping it brief this evening with our many speakers, and I'll turn it back to you, Chair, as we close the public session.
Thank you, Jessica. And thanks everybody for participating tonight. We appreciate it. Next up, actually, I think I have to adopt the agenda before, yeah, let me just do that real quick so things don't change before we hear from our elected officials. Item 8 has been tabled. Can I get a motion to adopt the agenda, please?
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Great. Any objections? The agenda is adopted. And with the minutes, a motion to adopt, or any questions?
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Bobby. Any objections? The minutes are adopted. With that, I want to welcome live, probably from Albany earlier today, or if not still now, our state senator and chair of the Judiciary Committee, State Senator Brad Hoylman. Senator.
Thank you so much. I will say that I saw Gail Brewer here first, but I'm happy to go if Gail.
Go ahead, Brad. It's fine. Go ahead.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, council member. And thank you, Jeffrey. Yes, not live from Albany, but live just back from Albany, where we elected our leaders on the first ballot, not the 6th or 7th or 8th, like the Republicans down in Washington are trying to get done. But it was a great day to be back in Albany, and there's a lot on our plate. Obviously, just a few things I wanted to touch base on. First, Bayview. Just to be clear, that did not happen by accident, and it wasn't a charitable gift from Albany or ESD. Your elected officials have been fighting for that ever since the last project folded several years ago for a women's foundation, and we always wanted supportive housing there. And thank you for endorsing that wholeheartedly. And I look forward to working with Assembly Member Tony Simone. I may be the first person to have said that on a community board meeting. I'm not sure. And our council member, the borough president, of course, Congressman Nadler, and making that a reality, working hand in glove with Community Board 4. Secondly, just wanted to acknowledge my amazing colleague, Natalie. I know everyone knows her, but she's doing such a fantastic job. And wanted to applaud you for your affordable housing plan. It was truly an honor to join you at your press conference last month. And again, look forward to working with you to make this a reality. Some updates on legislation, which was recently acted on by the governor, some good, some bad. Unfortunately, Governor Hochul vetoed our Stop the CHOP Act, the bill that Assemblymember Gottfried and I heralded for so many months, championed, fought, passed by the skin of our teeth in the waning days of the legislature, only to have it vetoed by the governor. I'm really disappointed. The ostensible reason was preemption. We hear that so much. I think preemption is just a big fat excuse. A lot of our laws are passed in Albany and are challenged. And some of them don't make it through the courts and some do. I wish the governor would have seen the light on this. But in the new legislative session, I'm going to be working with our council members, including Councilmember Brewer, who has led on this issue for so many years, to redouble our efforts to limit chopper flights over Manhattan. And I'm introducing the bill again to amend the Hudson River Park Act to close the West 30th Street heliport. There is no reason why we should have a heliport in a park. And I'm going to make that clear. I don't care if the governor uses that heliport or not. That needs to close. The governor did recently sign my bills to mandate that insurance cover PrEP and PEP. Those are the prophylactic anti-HIV drugs. We are also banning PFAS, thanks to our legislation. That's that forever chemical that originated from Teflon nonstick coating, but it's now used in everything from pizza boxes to apparel, and is linked to a lot of illnesses, including cancer. And we're getting it banned in apparel. And we're going to be requiring every residential lease to provide information regarding flood insurance, a growing concern with climate change. We're still waiting action on the governor, from the governor, on our Grieving Families Act. I don't know if you recall that legislation, but that bill would rectify New York's current law, which unjustly limits financial penalties in wrongful death cases based on the salary of a person killed. So if you're an infant or an older person, if you have a disability, or you have little or no education, if you're a working class person like so many of us, your life is valued less by a judge and jury because of our 150-year-old statute that just says you're only worth what your paycheck is. And 47 other states have updated this statute regarding wrongful death throughout the country. New York is way behind. I hope the governor is true to her word and negotiates this. I believe she is. And hopefully we can get that negotiated and passed before the clock runs out at the end of this month. We have an extra 30 days on this one because it went into a separate discussion pile, I guess. Another big issue that I'm dealing with as chair of the Senate Judiciary Committee is selecting the next chief judge, who is the leader of New York's court system, our third branch of government. Some people call it the least dangerous branch of government, but in many respects, it is the most important because they have had so many of our bills before them, our laws that they have invalidated, struck down, amended, and we really need a chief judge that reflects the values of New York State. The judge that was nominated by Governor Hochul is Justice LaSalle, was nominated back on December 22nd. And according to the state constitution, the state Senate has 30 days from that date by which to act on the nomination. As the chair of the Judiciary Committee, I'm going to be holding a hearing to review the qualifications in his record, including his opinions. And this is part of our constitutional responsibilities to provide advice and consent on judicial nominations. But the Court of Appeals in recent years has had this very mixed record: landlord-tenant issues, workplace protections for employees, criminal justice reform, a lot of, shall we say, conservative decisions coming out of the Court of Appeals that, frankly, again, we need to see a better court. I sent a letter with a number of my colleagues several months ago about what we'd like to see in a chief judge. It's in your report. You can read that. But I want you to know that I have publicly stated that it's going to be tough for the governor to get this nomination through. But really, we do owe this nominee a hearing. I think many people, most would agree on that. But I do share a lot of concerns of my colleagues that have been expressed. Third, I just wanted to mention I'm continuing to help lead efforts to reopen Midtown Community Court with my colleagues. Last month, we convened a meeting of stakeholders to develop a reopening schedule, including the Office of Court Administration, which, by the way, is headed by the Chief Judge. Another reason why that's such an important position, along with the Center of Court Innovation. And I was really happy to be with District Attorney Bragg, where he announced $9 million for mental health and substance abuse in our neighborhood, including Chelsea and Hell's Kitchen. Then wanted to mention fourth, the new Housing Works legal marijuana dispensary on the corner of 8th Street and Broadway. Until a couple of days ago, I would have said in our Senate district, but I no longer represent that neighborhood. But we are working to pass legislation in Albany to give more teeth to our Office of Cannabis Management to crack down on illegal cannabis. I sponsor legislation in connection with that, a co-sponsor with Senator Krueger. We hope to get that passed. And then finally, I just wanted to mention again, my colleagues and I are sponsoring a virtual event on January 12th about RSV and how to stay safe, particularly if you have a young child or you're a senior. That's on Thursday, January 12th, 6 to 7:30. Thank you, Jeffrey. Happy New Year to all. Let me know what you want me to do in Albany moving forward, but I've got a lot of stuff on my plate that I hope we can share and collaborate on as the session proceeds. Thank you.
Thanks, Senator. Best of luck, and may the trains run in your favor, north and south. So thanks for that. David, I've got to be honest, I'm not going to be entertaining questions this evening for the elected officials, given we're at 8:20. So I appreciate that. I'm sure Natalie would be happy to connect. Brad, thank you for being here. Councilmember Brewer, appreciate your patience. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. On managed care, that's something that the City Council is dealing with. That is the 250,000 seniors who have retired from the City of New York. And there is a proposal by the mayor, which has been introduced. I don't know that it's going to pass, but it has been introduced to the City Council to change the kind of health care they get. There is a hearing on it on January 9th at 10 o'clock. I assume it'll be very long. I put out a statement a while ago. I think I was the only person to actually put it in writing in the City Council that I do not support changing the health care for the retirees. Now, there may be some ability to figure out how there is a compromise. It is a $600 million hit right now between so many different discussions that have been going on in terms of the budget. But I think a promise is a promise. So anyway, just so you know, it is a great deal of discussion going on about managed care versus senior care, which is what people have now, without getting into all the specifics. I think it's in Board 7, but there is Project Renewal has a site that they bought from Manhattan Neighborhood Network on 59th Street. It's very close to Board 4. I've been working with the residents and the Project Renewal. I believe 200 women is what's proposed as a shelter. I strongly urged a permanent housing, which is what I would have preferred. I got nowhere with Department of Homeless Services. So maybe there could be fewer. It's really a shame to have a brand new building and not have permanent housing. So it would be 60 units of permanent. Apparently nobody's interested in doing that. So the question is, what do we do now with what we have? So I just want to let you know about it because it was discussed extensively at Board 7. And people always say, make sure Board 4 knows about it because it is close to your district. So FYI. I hope on permanent housing. Congratulations on Bayview, but Harborview is also something that we're pushing. We've got to get that project off the ground. It has been talked about forever. It should be 100% affordable. I talk often to Maria Guzman, who's president of the Tenant Association at Harborview. So just so you know, we're very much on top of it. The issue of cannabis. So we did a study from 54th Street to 108th Street. There are 61 somewhat new smoke shops, and at least half of them are challenging in terms of what they're selling. I'll leave it at that. So it has gotten a lot of discussion. A lot of people, we were the first ones that have done an actual study. We sent out staff and interns. And we are going with the sheriff tomorrow to investigate the 26 that are supposedly selling. Nobody will go to jail, but it does seem to me we've done with my oversight and investigations, fabulous investigation staff. We have gone to look at the ones that are near the village where Charles King has opened a legal cannabis, and there are just tons. So the question is, are you going to undersell? Are you going to make, how do we make sure that the legal cannabis stores are successful? So anyway, I'm not, without getting into all the specifics, with Linda Rosenthal, we also did a forum on this topic at John Jay College some weeks ago. But right now, there is no oversight really of these except the sheriff. I know that Brad Hartman talked about legislation. That legislation, I've had extensive discussions with the state, will include, to their credit, if it passes, but it won't be probably till April, and then they still have to do the regs. It will focus on taxes, because the whole, you can't really arrest people. There are only 126 sheriffs in the whole city, and I don't know how many of these illegal shops exist. A lot. And cannabis state is not going to have staffing to do running around. It'll be done the tax and finance of the state. I don't know how many inspectors they have. But the issue is, if you are a smoke shop or a bodega or whatever, the way that the state is going to get you, if legislation passes, which I thought made sense, is on your taxes. So you would not be able to charge sales tax. Well, if you can't charge sales tax, you damn well can't sell anything. You end up closing down your shop. So let's see if this works. That's one suggestion that's coming out of Albany, just so you know, in terms of that topic. I know there is a hearing coming up, the second one on the issue of Airbnb. I testified at the first one. We've been working on this for a long time. I thought the legislation makes sense, you know, in terms of people having to say who they are before they rent. And also you got to be there. You got to be physically on the premises. So I thought that was an important. There are some really small bed and breakfast owners who would like not to have their name, a phone number, and address in the public sphere. So I think that could at least be looked at. Catalytic converters, there were, I think it was a 230% increase in theft. It was immense from last year to this year. So we have passed a bill. It's my bill. It passed, and I assume it'll help. Basically, it says you have to have a VIN number and a copy of the vehicle title when you sell it. Well, if you stole it, you're not going to have all that. So hopefully that will curtail some of this. And the city council has also passed some language bills. It's a good group of council members who speak a gazillion languages, and yet they know that their constituents are not getting services because they do not understand it. We need language. Helicopters is an ongoing discussion. We've all been working on it so long. I don't know, other than getting the federal legislation that we all wish for that says nothing can fly as a helicopter over a city of 8 million or more. That hasn't passed. So there are bills in the city council that I am sponsoring. One, of course, is to say can't fly out of downtown, can't fly, non-essential anywhere from the borough of Manhattan, because that's where the heliports are, but it hasn't passed. And then I have one that says, to ban helicopters that don't meet certain noise levels. We're trying everything. So, and as you know, I flew in the helicopter from New Jersey. And so a lot of them are still coming from New Jersey, and we're still working, trying to get that curtailed. But it hasn't happened, just so you know. We had a huge hearing on the issue in my committee on oversight and investigations on school buses. We really are doing a lot of investigation. We're looking at all the contracts. There's actually a contract that de Blasio did that the city is running some of these bus companies. If they're getting the kids more on time to school than the other private ones, we should look at it. Yeah, I don't know if you know how many particularly special education kids get to school so late. It's just thousands of hours of lateness for these buses. It's got to stop. It's one of the things I said when I was running for the gazillion time for the city council. This has to stop. These kids have got to be able to get to school on time. It's really horrible. I want to thank, we've been working, as you know, on the food issue. We obviously worked with Eric Botcher on getting the seniors food. The bill that I passed many years ago has to do with local sourcing, and we're going to put a lot of time in on it the next couple of months. There's no reason why between the city of New York and the state farmers, we cannot buy more locally. Even Rikers, for God's sake, doesn't buy locally. And it's just people sitting right there. DOE does some, but not enough. All of the folks that DCAS buys for Department of Social Services, DCAS, and DOE buys, of course, for themselves. And even the seniors buy somewhat in a holistic manner for the centers, but they don't buy locally. DOE does a little bit. So we're going to focus on that and see if we can make the legislation more mandated. It turns out that the state prisons, all local, everything is bought locally. Now, obviously, if it's out of season, then you go to California. But for God's sake, if the apples, the lettuce, the broccoli, everything can be purchased here, there's onions, for God's sake. It should be purchased locally. So we're working on that. We are doing participatory budgeting. Most of it's on Board 7, but not all of it. So I'll make sure you have the opportunity to look to see if there's something that you want to support. And we are doing a local law 97 workshop in March. And we also have our ongoing housing clinic, as you do with housing conservation coordinators. We do it with God of Riverside, and it is, unfortunately, I guess you would say, extremely well attended, up to 100 people sometimes, all of whom get a free attorney. Thank you very much, and let's make sure that Harborview gets its affordable housing. Thank you.
Thanks, Gail. We appreciate it. Up next, we have representatives from 3 of our elected official offices, and I'm politely going to ask them to provide to us no more than 3 updates from their roster this evening, of which I'm sure they have many more. But first, I want to introduce a new representative to our board, which I'm excited about, on behalf of State Senator Liz Krueger's office, who actually represents more of CB4 now. We have Dana, whose last name I'd like her to pronounce, so that way I don't completely butcher it. Dana, are you with us this evening?
Yes, hi, I'm here. Thank you for having me. My name is Dana Schmerzler.
Schmerzler.
Yes.
Thank you.
And I'm so happy to be here tonight. I just started working for Senator Liz Krueger in her office, and I will be the main liaison for Community Board 4. Senator Krueger is still on her way and stuck in traffic from Albany, but she is definitely going to prioritize being here next month at your meeting and really introduce herself and go over what bill she's working on and what is going on in Albany. So I'll keep it really short. Just really happy to be here, and anyone, please feel free to reach out to me and talk and meet. And I'm really looking forward to getting to know you all over the next few months.
Dana, thank you so much. Great to meet you and glad to have you here. Up next, we have Donna Shishoa from Assemblymember Linda Rosenthal's office. Donna?
Hi, my name is Donna. I'm the new community liaison for Assemblymember Linda Rosenthal's office. The first thing that I just wanted to pass along is that I'm not sure who's heard, but the news is right. Assemblymember Rosenthal was just appointed as chair of the Housing Committee for the New York State Assembly. So the Assemblymember is thrilled, and she's looking forward to working with all of you on that. One update is that the Assemblymember Rosenthal recently wrote 2 letters, one to ODITA and one to the mayor's office regarding the skimming of SNAP benefits. So the skimming was just when someone puts a card in a reader and their information was stolen. And as a result of this, people are losing hundreds of dollars of benefits overnight. And because of a federal rule, neither the state nor the city can replace the funds. So people are left without a lot of critical benefits. There is federal legislation now. Senator Gillibrand introduced legislation that would allow the local government to replace these stolen funds. But in the meantime, we're asking ODITA to enhance the security on their cards by adding a chip. We also wrote to Mayor Adams because it recently came to light that HRA is only processing 40% of SNAP applications. And so this is due to staffing shortages, too many vacancies, not enough people to process these applications. So we are imploring Mayor Adams to come up with solutions to entice people to come back to work. Another update is that the Assembly members' bill on puppy mills was signed last month. This bill prohibits pet stores from selling dog, cats, and rabbits, and instead it allows these stores to partner with rescues and shelters to offer these animals up for adoption. And this ensures that the New York pet stores aren't purchasing animals from out-of-state puppy mills anymore that kept animals in horrible conditions. And then finally, we're still awaiting a flyer on this, but there's a save the date for a homeowners benefit clinic that we're hosting with the New York City Department of Finance. And this will be for people who need to renew homeowner benefits. And this will take place on February 10th from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. We will send out a flyer soon, so keep an eye out, but yeah. And then just one little quick last thing. A lot of people are coming into our office for masks, COVID tests. If you know anyone who needs either or both, you can come into our office at 230 West 72nd Street. And then as always, we're always here to help with any questions or concerns. You can call our office at 212-873-6368, or you can email us at rosenthal@newyorkassembly.gov. Thank you. Have a good night.
Thanks, Donna. Glad to have you here and welcome. And congrats to the new chair of the Housing Committee as well. And finally tonight, from the Borough President's Office, Yiyi Wang is with us. Yiyi?
Hi, everybody. Happy New Year. I have one congratulations and one thank you needs to be sent out on behalf of the Borough President. One is congratulations on the launch of Affordable Housing Plan. He's thrilled to join you at the December press conference, and he sincerely hopes other boards will follow your example. And one thank you to the Sanitation Working Group for presenting at December's Borough Board meeting. We already know that Community Board 1 asked you to present at their board meetings. So we hope that boards will invite you to present individually and find points of agreement that can collectively be advocated for. 2 updates. Our community board applications are now open. Please visit our website, which is manhattanbp.nyc.gov/community boards. And the deadline is March 17th. If you're up for reappointments, you will receive a notice from me. So keep an eye on that. And our State of the Borough is scheduled to be on January 31st, and doors open at 5 p.m. and the program will start at 6 p.m. at City College. Everybody is invited to join us. Please save the dates and invitation with more information, and RSVP will be available soon. And finally, last but not least, is that get your COVID booster shot and flu shot, get double shot, please, because we are in the middle of a terrible pandemic of COVID, flu, and RSV. Just wish everybody a healthy and prosperous new year. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Yiyi. We appreciate it and look forward to the invitations and notifications about those who need to reapply. With that, I'm moving on to the next portion of our agenda, and I'm going to pass it over to our district manager, Jesse Bodine, for his update.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Jesse Bodine, District Manager for Community Board 4. I'll be trying to be as quick as possible. As Jeffrey already slightly mentioned, we will continue to be meeting virtually as the city's EO emergency order was extended, and we'll stay 100% virtual until further notice. Just very quickly, CB4 staff attended the following meetings on behalf of CB4 over the last month. Site visit to a the Clean Curb pilot project on West 45th Street, and that was very exciting to see what that looks like in person. Community, and then also a community meeting around a project renewal site in the West 40s. I am excited to report that 2 multi-year water and sewer projects are now complete in our district. As of the end of 2022, the 9th Avenue West 50s project and the West 30s 9th Avenue project. They have been going on since before my time, and I was so happy to see them done. And if you live on 9th Avenue, I think you can see the difference. These were large water and sewer projects. That doesn't mean that everything has been there's not outstanding items that need to be fixed or cleaned up on the surface, but all of the subsurface work is done, and so that's just fantastic. And we'll be getting new ones shortly. So, but not for those areas. And then finally, I just wanted to highlight that our virtual clothing drive is active. It's on our homepage of our website. It went out with our newsletter a couple times over the holidays. It's still going. So this is organized by Aurora and Maria from our board, and we've got a number of the we focus on the adult single adult shelters in our area, and we got the shelters themselves to either create wish lists, Amazon wish lists, or give us the number of products that they needed, and we created, and Aurora and Maria created themselves. And so it's a really easy way of sending clothes and needed items to directly to the shelters in our district. So we have listed about three different shelters there. So please, community and members of the board, take a look. And in terms of January's meetings, the only meeting that is meeting not at scheduled time is CLU, which will be meeting on the 17th instead of the 16th due to the Martin Luther King holiday being observed on the 16th. All other meetings meet at their regular time. Thank you.
Thanks, Jesse. Updates from the chair. Diving right in, you heard our elected officials mention the press conference that we had in late December regarding sort of the formal rollout of our affordable housing plan. And just to note, I've heard from community boards 8 and 3 on wanting to have a meeting and figure out how ways they can come up with their own affordable housing plan. Of course, it will be nothing like ours because no neighborhoods are like ours. But this is really exciting that we are once again setting a precedent for policy and moving the city forward. That's something that's really important. So, of course, again, thanks to the folks who have put all the work into that. On CLU and HHS, you heard us mention as well the tour of the Bayview facility, excuse me, the rebranded Bayview Chelsea on 550 West 20th Street. Stay tuned for more there. CLU also, members of CLU went with Councilmember Botcher's office and the Department of Sanitation to tour 128 West 17th Street, the former colored school number 4, of course, which we've been advocating for preservation for a long time. So an exciting moment there. Also hoping to generate some press around that topic as well. Housing, Health and Human Services attended a follow-up tour of the Watson Hotel on 57th Street, which now houses 700 to 800 asylum seekers. I also want to very specifically call out a really immediate victory from this facility. We had a meeting with HHC, the managers of the facility, the Public Hospitals Corporation, not DHS. And one of the key things that was brought up was that this hotel has a lot of scaffolding, and a lot of folks that work there are delivery workers, and they were attaching bikes to trees and scaffolding, and it was really becoming a hazard. Well, we recommended aggressively on the spot the installation of a series of bike corrals to remove the bikes from the sidewalk. And within 2 weeks, sure enough, we had a serious number of bike corrals installed in front of this facility, now properly supporting the use of it. And it was a really impressive use of the city, taking direct action from our recommendation. So hopefully we can continue to get small wins like that to make space around these places better for all, including those who call it home. Clinton Hell's Kitchen Land Use continues to work with the Historic District Council on the upcoming Hell's Kitchen Historic District brochure as well. In terms of our working groups, the capstone work continues. I'll keep it at that for now. I know there's going to be some updates coming on that in the near future, including updates with regards to some working groups and public input. The cannabis working group, as was mentioned by the senator tonight, the first legal dispensary in Manhattan, and I believe the state opened on Lower Broadway last week. And the working group is also meeting tomorrow and will be providing comments to the draft dispensary regulations that will come before the executive committee at the end of this month and then be voted on by the full board in February. The Penn Station Area Working Group, there was a public forum held by Crane's media publication back in December with a number of folks and a key state senator, Leroy Kami from Queens, who holds a vote on the Public Authorities Control Board, announced formal opposition to the general plan, which is a whole new wrinkle to the process. So we are awaiting any updates or guidance on that. However, the public realm planning and work continues as it relates to the GPP. On the Port Authority bus terminal, that work has really been put on hold, but there is a new business item which you'll hear a lot more about this evening. I also want to announce a sort of a policy that we're going to need to put into effect, not tonight, but going forward for all committee and full board meetings, that when a vote is taken by a committee or at this full board, folks have their camera on. This is for a number of reasons. This is standard practice at many other community boards. It's also going to be our formal standard practice for when our hybrid policy officially goes into effect. And so this is to do our rehearsing to get into that, but also because when our meetings are streamed on YouTube, those who do not have their cameras on do not show up at all, including their name on the screen. And if we are to expect any of our votes to be taken seriously as it relates to our hybrid policy, we want to make sure that those voting can be considered themselves, who they are, and so their cameras are turned on when the vote is taken. I'm not saying it has to be the whole meeting, but when the vote and roll is called. So this is to go into effect after this evening. I didn't want to have too many daggers thrown my way to request those who had cameras off all night long. But we're going to ask that this take effect at committee meetings and full board meetings going forward. Again, when votes are called on a matter, all cameras are to be turned on for that vote to be recorded and registered accordingly. With that, I am pleased to pivot into the business portion of our meeting and pass it over to Frank and Bert for BLP.
Hi, everyone. Happy New Year. Well, we've been now going for 2 hours, 15 minutes. Now we get into the other part of our meeting, the business part. I really appreciate the fact that this is like a meeting, and I just realized it as we were going along, where there's not one person in the public session speaking against a bar or a restaurant, saying we have too many. We have 3 on my corner, 2 around the block. That seems like there's nothing controversial about bars anymore. It's all about dogs and about cars and streets and on cars with streets, no cars on the streets. So I very much appreciate the change in the atmosphere. So going forward, we have on BLP items 1 through 6. And as we say, unless there's questions, we'd like to bundle them.
Thanks, Bert. Any questions for BLP? Delighted to not see any hands. To Leslie and Marty for Waterfront Parks and Environment, please. Leslie, Marty.
I thought Leslie was going to take this. I don't see her right now.
I'm happy to take the letter. I spoke with Leslie if she's not here.
Matt, go ahead.
All yours.
Hey, everyone. Happy New Year. Our committee has drafted a letter to Manhattan Borough Manhattan Borough Commissioner Anthony Perez at the Parks Department regarding the dog park at Penn South Playground. First, I just want to thank Katie and Marty and Leslie for their work on this letter, and all the committee members for their help getting this letter to a place that we believe carefully considers and incorporates the comments that we heard from the community. We think it provides a fair recommendation and a path forward that includes carefully looking and discussing as a community a future dog run in the area. We did receive some friendly amendments to the letter, which include some small wording edits and a title change that we accepted. So those changes include, we're going to be revising the title of the letter from Temporary Dog Run at Penn South to Temporary Dog Run in Penn South Playground. As this is a city park, it's not on Penn South property. On line 37, we're removing residential in 2 residential buildings to between 2 buildings. We're adding the words adjacent to the dog park after the word street on line 33. There's a small typo on line 27. It should be compiled instead of complied. And we're moving the recommendation in the letter from line 47 to the front of the letter, just to make it a bit easier for readers to know what the recommendation is. So in our letter, we recognize the importance of this dog run as it showed a real demand for a park in this area. but we also recognize the problems associated with this particular dog run, most notably the noise complaints received from nearby residents. So as a committee, we really discussed this issue at length over multiple committee meetings. Given that this dog park was seen as a trial run, while the dog runs at Chelsea Waterside Park and Madison Square Park were closed and renovated, and those dog parks are now open again, we're asking the Parks Department in our letter to, one, close the dog park and Penn South Playground until a more formal planning process is undertaken to site and create a permanent dog run, while two, seeking an alternative nearby location for a dog run in the area. So I just want to note, separate from this letter, and as we heard earlier from Teresa at the Parks Department, discussions to find an alternative site are already underway between the Parks Department, our committee, and Councilmember Eric Botcher. And just as a reminder, some of the next steps, the Parks Department is scheduled to come to our January WPE meeting to discuss the possibility of creating a dog park within Chelsea Park. So we're all working together to find a new accessible space as soon as possible. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions or
Thanks, Matt. We have some. We'll start with Lowell, please.
I'll even turn my camera on for you, Jeffrey.
Thank you.
As Matt said, we discussed this over 2 meetings at WPE in November and December. We discussed this last spring when it was originally proposed. And I just want to object vehemently to the speaker during the public session who said we acted in bad faith. We considered this very carefully. We listened to multiple speakers, and probably twice as many as spoke during the public session tonight. And to say we acted in bad faith is disgusting to me. I am fully in support of this letter.
Thanks, Lowell. Carl?
Thank you. And thanks to the committee for working through a pretty, an issue with a lot of feelings about this. I do think that the letter doesn't quite fully memorialize the people that spoke in favor of the dog run. And I'm wondering if we can perhaps add some language that would beef that up, particularly in the paragraph that begins at line 30. Particularly speaking to the need and access of the dog run for folks with disabilities and the elderly, which I believe the speaker tonight mentioned as well.
Thanks, Carl. Yeah, we can add that line around line 30, no problem.
Thank you, Carl. Bert.
Yes, I fully respect the committee's deliberation, and I certainly do not think anybody acted in bad faith. I think many, many hours were spent on this, and it's a very emotional issue. I was disappointed, though, in the way Carl described it, that I think, having heard at public sessions prior to tonight, there are many people who spoke in favor of the dog run, and I don't think this letter represents those people fully. It seems like if I were going to make a graphic, those loud and clear against, their part of the weight would be way up, and those for the dog run would be way below, as this comes out in the letter. Though I think in actual numbers, I don't want to go into numbers 2 versus 3 or anything like that. I think the letter should represent as well many of those people who spoke in favor of the dog run, who feel the need for the dog run. They're not going over to Madison Square, and they're not going over to Chelsea Waterside Park. And, I have all good faith in the Department of Parks, but whatever they're talking about, it ain't going to happen for at least 2 or 3 years. That's what I hear.
No, wait.
They got to study this and they got to study that, and the handball courts are here, and there's half of that. That's just what I was hearing tonight, and it wasn't very encouraging. That's all. Thank you.
Bert, are you, based on what Carl said, is there something more specific you'd like to have highlighted? It sounds like you want a specific mention that the the number of supporters was very much sort of in line with those objecting, or I don't want to put words out. I was just trying to.
I don't know. I don't know if it was, half and half or 20 to 80 or 2/3 to 1/3. I think we don't operate that way. I do hear the people who are opposed are very loud.
May I jump in here? I'm sorry.
Sure.
I want to, I'm sorry, I missed the beginning of this. My daughter has a test on Ben Franklin tomorrow. And by the way, I had to go help her. And now I know how much I don't know about Ben Franklin. But anyway, so I apologize. Just so you guys know, I do want to thank Matt. You might have said this, but I want to thank Matt Green and Katie Savage for who are writing this letter, and also Jeffrey LeFrancois also helping out with this letter. But Bert, to your point about parks, that's why they came on tonight. They came on specifically for this letter. So we heard a lot of back and forth over months, really weeks and months about this. And when Parks and Eric Botcher, Councilman Eric Botcher's office understood that there might be an immediate need, Bert, in that area, but maybe not that park particularly, we kind of went into figure it out mode. And we had meetings subsequently from the WPE meeting and writing of this letter with Parks, with Eric's office, on where we can have a suitable location that was nearby and we can kind of move quickly on. And that is going to be Chelsea Park, where they mentioned the handball court. So it's not going to be a few years from now. It's actually the opposite of that. It's the reason why they came on is because they want to go through the process that didn't go through this time around. And unfortunately, as you see, because there was no process, this is what happened. So they're coming to WPE in a few weeks. It's going to get moving very quickly. So we actually think, as Dale said, we love win-wins. We think this is going to be a win-win. We think there's going to be a dog park right in the immediate vicinity, while hopefully alleviating some of the complaints that we're hearing. Just that FYI, there was some stuff, that's why, leading up from the letter to now, that we have been working on behind the scenes very diligently.
And soon.
I didn't hear whether or not, Leslie, you, Matt, Marty, are willing to sort of enhance based off what Carl and Bert said, just a further acknowledgement of those in favor, and that's why maybe it segues to why it will be a win-win in a way.
I won't speak for Marty, but I have absolutely no problem with that, and I support that 100%. But I'll let Marty.
Doesn't change our position.
No, absolutely no. And I think it's good to memorialize all the different voices anyway. It could help as we move forward into the other one.
I agree. I think a sentence memorializing the number of people that were in favor right next to the sentences that say that a number of people are being hurt by the noise of the dog park is perfectly appropriate. The other thing I would like to add that Leslie didn't emphasize enough is that in our conversations with Parks, the promise was soon, Bert. It wasn't a year, and we really pushed that. I believe that they're talking about soon. They said at the end of January, but the timeline that was laid out today probably will put it towards February.
Thank you, Lowell, and then Betty, and then we're gonna call it on this one.
All right, just so the rest of the board understands how the committee ended up where we did with this letter. The original letter that this board approved on this dog run called it temporary. It was both words, temporary and trial basis, were put in there. And the reason the committee ended up where it did, and the letter going in this direction, was because it was just that. It was done on a temporary basis. It was done on an emergency basis because these other dog parks were closed. And as Marty just referred to, we didn't do the kind of background checking, research, community outreach that we normally would have done to, cite a dog park like this. And we just felt that since the original letter said temporary/trial, that we should stick to that, or the board would lose credibility if we said, okay, well, now it should be permanent without the kind of diligence that we're going to go through on the new location.
Okay, so Alan raised his hand after I said Betty will have the last. So Alan, if you'll indulge me there, I'd appreciate it, unless it's something distinctly different. Betty?
Does Alan want to talk?
You're next on the queue.
Oh, okay. I'm a little confused because I thought that the letter said that there was going to be an exploration of alternative locations for the dog park. And I thought that was pretty good. But now it sounds like the location for another dog park has been determined. So it seems a little like there's a mismatch between the letter and what people are saying tonight.
I can clarify that, Betty. The letter was written where they were saying that we were going to explore other locations. Since that letter was written and it was submitted and, you know, committee voted on it, we had a subsequent meeting with Parks and Eric Botcher's office. That's where it was narrowed down even further to Chelsea Park. Hence, that's why they came on tonight to give an update, to kind of, I guess, give a little more framework, a little more reference for that. So
maybe it'd be better to say in the letter that there has been an exploration of alternative options and that the best option has been identified, something like that. It just doesn't work otherwise. Anyway, you guys, all yours.
we could put something like that. I would hesitate to say it's identified, or they are. I think they want to go through the process that they didn't go through before. So they are going to visit WPE in a few weeks to formally present Chelsea Park. I mean, we could, Jeffrey, do you have any problem, or Marty, problem putting in the words Chelsea Park? I certainly don't, but I don't know if you want to do that before they actually present to WPE.
We've had the conversation. We've had the conversation. Chelsea Park has been identified, but we can't say that Chelsea Park is the location. Perhaps we can say something like that there is an ongoing exploration of alternative sites, one of which might be Chelsea Park. We can mention the name without saying that it's the chosen one.
I guess that's sort of a compromise. I guess from my standpoint, and I'm a neighborhood person, that were other sites in good faith examined? Were there any others? I mean,
I am getting reluctant to continue nuancing continue finessing the nuances of this letter. We are on month 3+ on this, and the topic is not going to go away. I think keeping it broad is appropriate. And at this point, I think I don't want to sort of pigeonhole us into a specific location, given the accusations that have been flying, many of which are not appropriate. So Betty, if that's okay with you, I'd like to keep it broad.
Okay.
This conversation will be permanently on YouTube, so everyone will hear anyway.
But they're going to have to be 2.5 hours in to find us. Alan.
I'll make this quick. So going back to the original letter, the last paragraph, we expect to be willing to make adjustments to the operation of the dog run based on further community input, which we've been getting. Once the dog run reopens at Waterside Park, expects Parks Department to return to committee to discuss the future trial, dog run, and other permanent uses. So it seems the intent of the original letter was to keep it running until Parks came back to the community to discuss various options and various other things. The other thing I want to say is perhaps we can put something in a little bit stronger about the seniors that Penn South is always concerned about in terms of their well-being. My personal being in that park, it seems that for many of the seniors, this was God sent to them to be with their cherished pets to watch them and enjoy them being there. You can go to any dog run and something is going to happen where people are going to be afraid they won't go back to that dog run. So for the most part, I think the issue with the seniors is an important aspect that doesn't seem to have gotten very much play in this letter. Thank you.
I think that the authors have agreed to specifically memorialize the convenience and importance of having it there for access for seniors and those with disability issues. Mr. Pascarella, on the last comment, please.
Can we add one line that we'd like Parks Department to tell us what they're going to do with this temporary dog park? Can we get them to move? That's all.
I just want to respond to that. I think the answer is probably no, because Parks doesn't know yet. We have to go through a process of designing the Penn South playground, and that's going to be a longer process than just looking at this part of the park.
No, what I'm saying, Marcy, the urgency of them, they're showing us now that they can move quickly. And I'm just saying, we'd like to see the same urgency in this new redesign. I know Jeffrey doesn't want to muddy it. Thank you.
Just talking about the redesign is not only talking about the dog park, it's talking about the whole park.
Right. And I'm saying, we've been talking about this park for a long time. We took this unused piece. It's been controversial. I like to say in the letter, we'd like this to get moved along quickly as well, but maybe not. I'll move on. Sorry, Jeff.
Thank you, Brad. Christine, I'm begging. Are you calling the question for us to move on?
No, Brad, the comment of Brad just confused me. I thought the letter was saying, just close the park, close the dog run.
I think he's referring to, so the original letter was in, we edited it out for, right, Jeffrey, for brevity. This Penn South playground has already been allocated whatever $1 million for a total rehaul. It's going to be under a total redesign process. Penn South playground, it's going to be an adaptive use playground. Everything is going to be redone. I think that's what Brad might be referring to kind of like, and that redesign process is going to, the community input is happening fairly quickly. I think this spring they're going to start the community discussions on what that should look like and where we should go. I think, Brad, I don't want to put words in your mouth. I think Brad was saying maybe we should add a line like, let's get to that one too. Like, let's hurry up. Like, but I don't.
But just so you know, the as it was authored, we purposefully struck that because it was out of scope for this ask, which is close the dog run. Let's find another, close the dog run and in its location as we're working to find another suitable location.
So that's what it says. Fine. I was confused. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jeffrey, may I make one comment? I just want to thank the committee on this. Sorry, I know, only because it was it got really heated with a bunch of people like talking from either side. And our committee was, as Lowell said, really, really thought about this and talked about it amongst themselves and during committee. And I just want to thank the committee because there was a lot of stuff going on with this one. So I appreciate their thoughtfulness on it.
Sure, and likewise, I have been a part of the discussion and process all along, watched the committee meetings, and the accusations of bias and a lack of transparency to me are outrageous. We have one of the most publicly accessible committee and board meetings available. Our YouTube channels are instantaneously available and our links are very, very public. So I appreciate the work of the committee and our very public discussions along the way, which have brought us to this point. So we are moving on from WPE to ACES, Arts, Culture, Education, and Street Life. Alan and Kit.
And I'm very pleased to turn this over to Josephine, who wrote the letter for the theater.
Thanks, Alan. Josephine?
So this is can you hear me? This is a very straightforward letter. It is about the new Federal Theater, which lost their space last month when the commercial spaces were sold in the building where they were located on West 42nd Street. So they are in urgent need of a new space and it has to be subsidized. This is a theater that one of the few theaters in the city that focuses solely on integrating women and people of color in terms of playwriters and actors into the mainstream theater district. So they're looking for a space located somewhere in CB4, either within the theater district or nearby. And so we are asking the Department of Cultural Affairs and Eric Botcher's office and Mark Levine to work together to try to find a new home for them. Thank you.
Thanks, Josephine. Great letter. Any questions for ACES on this? Thank you. To Clinton Hell's Kitchen Land Use, Paul and JD, please.
I think I'm taking this one. This is a letter. The Garment District Alliance is looking at various solutions to solve problems of commercial and manufacturing vacancy rates and a lack of affordable housing. They're considering doing a zoning text amendment to allow the conversion of some of their commercial space into residential space. They came to us to ask generally how we would react to that, given the desire for increased housing stock in our neighborhood, notably affordable housing. We are generally amenable to something like this. At least that's the committee. The committee was generally amenable to this. The letter to the Garment District Alliance is in the package. It basically outlines the issues that we have raised on other residential conversions, other residential developments, such as making sure that we have a permanent affordability units, we have income disbursement, and that we have building services built within the building, such as trash removal and package delivery and things like that, so we don't clog our sidewalks. Pretty standard information from all of our previous meetings. So this is just a letter to Garment District Alliance, kind of codifying our general positions. A zoning text amendment, if they decide to go forward, will come up in the future. Memorialize it in that conversation.
I see.
Oh, by the way, I'm sorry. Before I take the questions, I did receive some edits from Betty on the presentation itself that we include request for size of current buildings, the vacancy rates of both hotels and commercial space, as well as the residential, and how much space could be converted and how those hotels are being used. So Betty, I incorporated that language into the letter so far.
Paul, I have a first question before Joe and Jessica, please. On item 2, the second bullet, the focus needs to be conversion for properties with restrictions on demolition, particularly demo for the purpose of rebuilding. I don't understand that.
Okay, the language might be a little awkward there. That we want to make sure that there isn't a effort to just knock down existing buildings and then build new glass towers. So we want to make sure that the buildings are converted and that they're not demolished. So I can work on some tweaking of that language to clarify there.
Yeah, I guess it does, based on what you said, I understand it now. That otherwise doesn't. So maybe it's an extra sentence. Thank you.
I'll tighten that language. Yeah, reading it now, I can understand why you're confused.
Joe?
Yeah, Paul, after the meeting, if we could just work on that lines 37 to 47 there, just to sharpen some of the language, but also to try to get the priorities. We had a committee that, like, the first thing, for example, was affordable housing with mandatory, with inclusionary housing in it, and then not limiting height and bulk, stuff like that. So we can sort of just write it, not put it down in a way that it was talked about in committee in terms of priority. So if we can do that, sometime after the meeting. Okay.
Yeah, Joe. As I said to Sebastian, any edits, just send them along. Anything you have to add to the letter, I'm sure I'll be gratefully.
Yeah, I'm also going to give you some references to zoning text that we have already, so we can say do it like inclusionary housing, 23-90, crap like that.
If you can send that to me tomorrow, Joe, I'll get it done before I send it out.
Great.
Thanks.
Thanks, Joe. Jessica?
Yeah, thank you. 2 thoughts as friendly, and you can, I love your response, but you can take them as you want. One would be to emphasize the affordability element. I think it's a little muted here, and I think that is really important to this board. So I'd want to call that out more distinctly. The other is just some concern around the point of conversions versus demolition. There are a number of studies out right now that show that in some cases buildings cannot be converted, and while they may not meet their full use anymore, conversion just isn't likely to produce more housing, and that demolition might be needed. And so I would just, for the committee to consider, maybe again for this letter or otherwise, that there are other things you want to preserve. You may not want a glass tower, but you want to preserve the nature of the neighborhood or the blockscape. And if these buildings are not protected, then that might be something that you can try to accomplish both, which is activating the space and reusing the space, but also maintaining the nature of the neighborhood. So I would just encourage you guys to think about that if you really want these buildings to have a life beyond their current use.
Thanks, Jess. That is a part of the discussion that came up at committee, is that perhaps, and I tap on it, is to create live-work situations where buildings could have a combination of commercial, maybe in the lower floors, and residential on the upper floors. Because your point is well taken that some of the footprints and floor plans of commercial space do not convert well to residential because the core and the distance from core to windows is too great to create bedrooms. But many of these buildings are also wedding caked and tiered so that the upper levels could be converted to residential while we maintain commercial at the lower levels. And so that is a consideration. The big factor here, though, is most of the buildings they're talking about that have commercial vacancy rates, they are overbuilt for current zoning. So you wouldn't really be able to, if you tore it down and rebuilt, you would not be able to build at the size they have now. And so that conversion to residential wouldn't really make sense.
Sure.
Okay,
great. I mean,
and that's the difference in the letter. You'll see soft sites and hard sites. It's those soft sites that are smaller that could be built up bigger that we're also a little bit concerned about. But again, the zoning text amendment is going to come forward and we'll have further discussions on it. This is to just make sure our priorities as a board are recognized as they move forward with drafting anything.
Your explanation was much clearer, Paul. I think we need just to memorialize some of that because that informs the position.
Yep. Thanks. Appreciate that.
Brad?
Did the Alliance talk about the loss of jobs? I mean, are they looking at tax incentives and zoning areas for incentives for businesses? I mean, I get we need housing, but we also need jobs. So I'm just curious. I know it's not part of this letter. I'm just curious. An empowerment zone. I mean, it's just like we need more housing, but we actually need jobs for everybody.
Can I jump in because I've dealt with the Garment Center for like 140 years, it feels like. The number of Garment Center jobs when we started this back in 86 and sorry, 85 was 400,000. It's now 5,000 in the Garment Center.
Joe, what I don't mean garment district jobs. It's the garment district. What I mean is new types of jobs. As we were talking about for, technology centers or I'm just saying where they need to bring in other types of jobs. It's just called the garment district.
So the reason this came up to the board is because with COVID, the vacancy rate in these Class B and C buildings has now approached 40% on some blocks. And that's specifically why they came to say, can we repurpose for residential? It doesn't mean that the district in terms of its job base goes away, but it seeks to create a balance. And especially, I think what Paul's point was, of the wedding cake buildings, the lower floors are always going to be commercial. They do not work for residential, but the upper floors do. So they really came to us with a very nuanced plan. And maybe we should, Paul, ask Jesse to put that up on the website for our board, so that can be seen by the broader board members, because it kind of lays it out in broader terms, Brad. I think that'll help you understand the back and the forth we went through in committee.
Yeah, and Brad, I will add that we did have conversations about residential tax incentives like a 421G or something like that, so that there would be other incentives for residential, but in our conversations with them, I'm certainly happy to raise empowerment zone discussions and things like that. But that's a GDA discussion point, not necessarily for this letter, but it's a good point to raise. Thank you for that.
JD?
Yeah, Brad, I think they're looking into anything that would work for them. I want to emphasize one other point. Ward 4 only has a part of the garment district. The larger part is Ward 5. So this was just a preliminary exploration, and we're just saying, great, let's talk some more. That's all it is.
Thanks, JD. And thank you, Paul, and to the committee for the letter and the work. Up next, Christine and Dale, Transportation Planning.
Hi, everyone. Happy 23. Okay, we have 4 letters which we wish to bundle. 11 is on the 28th Street substation project to the MTA. There's a letter to the DOT about the bids at proposed open streets along Hudson Boulevards east and west. And then there are 2 letters pertaining to the 22nd Street open street, about which we have heard much. One is a interim measure to remove the barricades and change the duration of the street opening. And the second is looking towards a longer term solution of studying a shared street designation. And we do have some clarifying language from Paul, which we'll incorporate, which is in 13, there's a mention of 90% of the New York public are not users of cars, and we're going to clarify that to specify that it's 90% of people, New Yorkers don't drive to work, use cars for their commute. Any questions?
Thanks, Dale. Lowell?
Yeah, I'm just turning the video on again, per your request, Mr. Chair. I am voting against the 2 letters on 22nd Street. I see no reason that 22nd Street should be treated differently than any other street in the city. I don't want to get into it. The arguments have all been made one way or another. I just wanted to go on record saying I'm voting against the letters.
Thanks, Lowell. Katie?
I had a question about letter 12.
Yes.
I just actually don't understand the sort of the designation or something. So it's limited or something. Hold on, I can try and pull it up quickly. I just limited local access. How is that different? Actually, Dale, can you just tell me what it means?
It means that when the streets are activated as an open street, it means that they're restricted from through traffic. In other words, if you're in this sense, it hardly applies because Hudson Boulevards east and west are like this, just a couple of blocks long. But it means like you can drive onto the street if you have business on the street, such as a delivery or a pickup or a drop off, or your destination is on the street. But you're asked not to drive through the street if you're trying to get from A to B, and this is, one of the ways to get there.
So would it be then similar, like would it have these sort of gates or blockades that like people have to move if they wanted to drive onto? Is it similar to 22nd
They're just going to use, when they activate the open street, they're going to have like activities, and they're going to use like the sawhorse barricade, which will be personed.
Oh, so this isn't like a permanent thing. This is just a.
No, I think
Oh, okay.
Well, it's in the proposal, but the hours are very limited.
Okay, it wasn't clear. That is super helpful. And then I just wondered about the letters about 22nd Street. One of the public speakers earlier had suggested adding language, and I wondered if you would be open to it, about it being equitable for people on nearby streets as well, or taking into account
I think the letter already captures that interest, and yeah.
Oh.
I mean, I think the speaker was asking for equity for drivers specifically, and we're looking at it as a community-based interest, not specific to drivers.
Actually, I think, okay, at least the language I saw in the letters said it's being equitable for everybody on 22nd Street. And I think he was saying it's being equitable for people who live on other streets that then have a lot more traffic. So I think that the language is actually limited in the letter to being equitable for everybody on that street, but on that street only, not.
Let me get. Yeah, go ahead, Christine.
Yeah.
While I get to the letter.
I think we have. I don't know whether it says on 22nd Street. We didn't mean to be restrictive to that, but it also says that there will be a study of neighborhood impacts. So at the beginning, we're saying it's going to look at all the neighborhood. And that's the major message of the request, is that they do the study of including the neighborhood impact. Okay, so that's the way we thought we would capture it, by putting that in. And that was a big discussion at the meeting. So everybody jumped in.
I mean, the specific language is all street users.
Right.
Right. I guess it meant that street. Okay. I guess
it's not specific to.
I think between those two things, we thought we capture it. We can reinforce that language, but we thought we were capturing it.
Yeah, I don't think our intent was to, when we said street users, was just that street. It's it's broadly.
So maybe neighborhood or something. Okay.
Yeah, neighborhood user. We can do that.
All right. And then the only other suggestion, and then I'm done, is just one line below that, or 2 lines below that, line 36, where it says it would replace the current open street program. I would just make a friendly amendment of replacing current with the word trial. That's all.
It's not a trial.
It wasn't a trial when it was started?
No.
No.
Oh, I misunderstood. Okay.
It's a yearly renewable program. But it is
so every year it has to be reapplied for.
It is a DOT program, which was, as the street was originally identified by this committee in a suite of recommendations. DOT selected it for this treatment, and it's been an ongoing program, the Shared Streets program, Open Street program.
Great. Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Katie. Jesse?
I just want to quickly share with the rest of the board, this transportation committee meeting lasted almost 5 hours. We had multiple speakers on both sides discussing the current use and long-term use of West 22nd Street. I just want to convey to the rest of the board that our proposal here, by splitting it into 2 letters, and our proposal for what we are going to do with the barricades, which is the main source of current tension, people wanting the barricades to come down immediately versus keeping them up, it is a real compromise between the 2 sides. We suggest limited hours, forming not having the barricades just sit there, but actually forming a chicane so that cars have to sort of weave through it. And so this was a compromise that we came to after a lot of discussion, and I hope people are receptive to that. Thanks.
Thanks, Jesse.
Thanks, Jesse. Dolores.
So I wanted to reiterate that you both Dale and Christine find some stronger language to highlight that we are looking for the study across the entire neighborhood. It does read slightly that it is focused on 22nd Street. And I think that we do need to recognize that the impact of traffic moving to other blocks does create other issues for those pedestrians on those blocks in the neighborhood. And the other thing is, Dale, you had just mentioned one of the stats that you were with the friendly amendment, about 90% of the folks don't use cars to work. Is there a source of that statistic? And I'm wondering if that includes folks that take rideshare and taxis, because while folks do not own cars in our community, there certainly are folks that are using vehicles to get to work with things like Uber, Lyft, and taxis. And I'm wondering if there's a data source that you're using for that statistic in the letter.
This is coming from the census, and I will verify whether it includes the taxis.
Okay, so
I can't remember right now whether
that's fine, but it sounds like it most likely is about car owners, right?
No, car owners is more like 20%. We're talking about using the car. There is a specific survey. Say, how do you go to your work?
Wonderful.
And
That'd be
is
great
that
if you could
survey.
cite it
So-
in the letter.
Right.
Like, I don't need to know what it is, but
Yeah.
I think it's important to cite it because, again, I think there's an.
You can footnote it.
That's
Yeah, we'll
perfect.
footnote it.
Because I think it's important to differentiate, considering that while we don't have car owners necessarily in the community, if we have statistics that demonstrate how often people may use vehicles for their transportation, that makes those points much more reliable. Thanks.
I think a footnote would be
We'll do
definitely
that.
helpful in that instance.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Darren?
Yeah, very quickly, just to sort of reiterate a couple of points that have been made. I think probably it would be, it's a friendly, I'm part of the committee, so I'm just making a friendly amendment here. If we can include the language about neighborhood impact in both letters, that would be good. And I think probably qualify what we mean by neighborhood. Let's just call it a larger neighborhood rather than simply neighborhood. Does that make sense?
I mean,
Well, I think we had that
I tend to
discussion.
disagree on this because the short-term letter is an ask for immediate action. So to put neighborhood impacts in that letter is going to forestall some immediate action, in my view, with the DOT. And as far as we understand, the operators and at least the proponents and at least some of the opponents are do have a consensus view that some of the main objections are with the barricades. So we're looking to, the reason we separated them is exactly that, to have like a swift, a short-term plan and a long-term plan. So I think the neighborhood impact study should be in the letter that captures our ask for the long-term plan, but not the short-term plan.
Dal, but I think what we should do, let's qualify what we mean by the neighborhood. So,
okay, I don't think.
Baron, I'm concerned we are
Yes.
veering very seriously back into committee discussion.
Yeah,
Discussion.
this was hammered out.
And I think it's pretty clear now that the letters, both of them, why they're separate, and that there's an address, a focus for 22nd Street and a focus for, the stuff that Katie brought up and that the co-chairs have acknowledged of referring to things more broadly in the neighborhood and not just 22nd Street.
I'm agreeing to that. I'm saying in the second letter, we should qualify what we mean by neighborhood. Just call it larger neighborhood. Because the sort of issue being raised that the impact goes beyond 22nd Street block.
Well, Viren, I may want to say that we had a discussion on that specific subject, and the motion which was made was specifically to talk about the near neighborhood, 20th Street, 22nd Street. I know you live on 20th Street, this is what we're talking about. So I think we have discussed that and settled on a definition. So I think we may want to add one or two words.
I think we should add, that's my suggestion. You may overrule that.
Okay.
I think that the moment we create shared street or open street and we change the traffic patterns, Brass's paradox kicks in, and it can have a larger impact. So I think we want to use the word equitable in this letter. Let's be equitable and let's be understanding that there will be an impact overall beyond that particular block. I'm all for open streets and I'm all for shared streets, but at the same time, I'm also all for equitability. So that's just a suggestion, just a friendly amendment. If it is not acceptable, that's okay. But I want to put it on record that the impact goes beyond the block between 7th and 8th Avenues.
That's what neighborhood impact means. Okay.
Hector.
Yeah, I'm trying to grasp as to why this particular block was selected among others in the neighborhood.
With all due respect on your question,
Yeah.
I want to keep it to the scope of the letter. These letters were
Okay.
voted on and adopted specifically by the committee. And I feel like that question is out of scope for the letters.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well,
So I understand where you're coming from. If there is a desire to have a committee discussion on this, I'll ask for that.
Our letter
to happen.
enumerating potential blocks was from 19 or 20, so it's in the archives.
Okay, I'll review that. It's just I have a big problem with this particular street, having the privilege to renew this every year, while other streets don't have the opportunity to have that kind of privilege.
Oh no, wait a minute.
They
Hector,
do.
every street has the privilege to apply for it. In fact, there were about 20 streets which were proposed, and every street has the privilege to apply for it.
Okay, well, I think
we'll look forward to your open street application for the block that you want to designate as an open street soon, and we'll act on it.
I appreciate it. I'm not going to beat this like a dead horse. I'm just thinking that people are not aware of this process, or even that it's doable. So,
well, I mean, it is true. It is true. Like with a lot of some of the other issues that we've seen, this was like it emerged from COVID, and you're right. It did not, it was not like fully amplified in the way that other programs might be, but it has been 2 years. So.
And in the letter, you'll see that there are 480 blocks in the city. So there are at least 480 people which are aware, right? There is a lot of people aware, and I think we may need to do a better job to educate everybody on the opportunity.
Thank you.
Right.
Thanks, Hector. Sorry for jumping in there. I apologize. Kit.
Thanks, Jeffrey. And if this is out of scope, just let me know. But one thing that I heard in the testimony tonight that was a bit surprising was the assertion that the open street situation on 22nd was making the street more dangerous. And I think since we're suggesting a study, it might be helpful to explicitly call out, reporting out on sort of what does the research say and what data exists about the impacts on safety for pedestrians, cyclists, and folks driving cars. As someone who lives very close to that block and feels a sense of safety on that one and others that are shut to cars, and doesn't feel that way on all other streets in New York City. I think it could be healthy to specifically encourage studying that aspect and that being taken into account as we think about what's equitable for that street and the surrounding streets in the neighborhood.
That's good.
Kit, are you suggesting like some language to that effect in the second letter, the long-term solution, or in the short?
Item 13. I don't know if that's the first or the second one, but the one we're suggesting a shared street study. Just
long-term, yes.
Okay. Would you mind sending us a little bit of language to that effect?
I would mind, but I will do it anyway.
Please.
Thank you, Kit. David.
You're on mute, David.
David Warren. You're up, David Warren. You're on mute, David. David, shout it out.
Sorry about that. I'm sorry. Do you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. I really urge people to support and vote for both these letters. Unfortunately, I'm present but ineligible to vote for them. And my reasoning is because, like Jeffrey was saying, our community is at the forefront with housing and other issues. We're also at the forefront with this. And this is not the perfect block. There is no perfect block. I like the fact that there's a parking garage on that block because there's always going to be something there. And this could be the role model for the future for other blocks. Unfortunately, my block can't be because it's a state highway. I'm on 34th Street. But I would love for more blocks to be, especially in the future, have shared streets. So I think that I would urge everyone to vote for this, for these letters. And thank you.
Thanks, David. And just to note that we did have committee members who voted P&E on this letter because of their engagement with Check Peds, which was one of the sponsoring orgs.
Thanks, Dale. I wanted to say, before we went into quick discussion, there's a lot of people on this board who don't know what a bundle is, actually, because they never voted in person and voted one by one. And it's funny how we still sort of reference that. I want to give it over to Jessica and Chelsea, Jessica and Carrie for Chelsea land use.
Thank you. Actually, Carrie was going to present on this letter, but just texted me that she lost her Wi-Fi connection. So I'm going to do my best here.
I'm here if you need me.
Oh, she's
I'm back.
here. Okay,
Sorry.
no, Carrie, you take it. You were
Okay.
you authored this letter. You please take it.
Yes, sorry about that. And if I get disconnected, I'll try to make it really fast. We have one letter tonight. It's an LPC application for a proposed facade alteration, plus now a host of past violations that they're looking to legalize for 458 West 20th Street. Suffice it to say, thanks David and Pamela, by the way, for helping to write this letter. And suffice it to say, we voted on this twice, unanimously twice, recommended denial for this application. Any questions?
Thanks, Carrie.
Yeah, really quick, I will say that if anyone's interested in seeing what a real great example of, what happens to a landmark historic building when violations go, unchecked, just check out the old photo versus the new photo of this sad building. Thank you.
Thank you. Finally, on new business, I'm going to pass it over to Bert to talk through our letter to the Port Authority.
Okay, I'll try to make it short, though it's a very long, involved, intense, and passionate subject. Over the last 2.5 years, everyone is aware, or maybe you're not aware, but everyone is aware there's going to be a new bus terminal. And it's proposed, we decided that we would like to have an ongoing conversation with the Port Authority. And we created a working group, and we have had an ongoing conversation with the Port Authority, bringing up our perceptions about the project, our criticism, our endorsements, and they were listening, and we had a very good relationship, I would say. It was successful, and both appreciated by us and by the Port Authority, okay? Then they got to a point about 6 months ago where, oh, we can't meet on the regular schedule, let's postpone it, and we'll get back to you and let you know why. And we lost the schedule, we lost the intimacy of the ongoing conversations, and I think the last time we met with them was maybe a month and a half ago, maybe 2 months ago. And they've announced just recently that construction for the first element of the new bus terminal, which is actually going to be a staging area on 37th Street, 38th Street, over the Dyer Avenue. Platforms will be constructed. Eventually, they'll be used as staging. They'll be used, to park buses while the old terminal is being demolished. And eventually, they're going to become parkland. We want to talk with them. We need to talk with the Port Authority. And we've tried, and we've spoken with them, and they yes, we will maybe have something at the end of the month. We'll get back to you. Maybe we'll have something in 3 weeks. We'll get back to you. And we just need to memorialize, we feel, in writing, this is what our relationship has been, and it has been a success. We don't want to lose it. It's to your benefit, and it's to our benefit, the community and the Port Authority. And we want to continue it, and we want everyone to know about it. It's not just a working group reporting what we're doing to the board. We want to memorialize it in writing in this letter to the Port Authority, to the people involved, and CC'd to our electeds. And this letter was written over like a number of days by many people contributing into the letter.
Thank you, Bert. Just a comment before we go to Dolores with the question. This letter, were we under our sort of standard December schedule? I canceled the executive committee meeting. I didn't have any formal business and there was no other business to be taken up. Ordinarily, a letter like this would have come out of exec. We didn't have the meeting. And so we are taking the liberty tonight by bringing it up at new business. Of course, it's outside the standard preference of our very thorough and transparent procedure to bring it through a committee. However, we are a formal partner on this project with the Port Authority, and I feel it's very appropriate to go on the record now asking for our cadence of communication and meetings to reconvene and continue, and thought it was more than appropriate to do this at the start of the new year. I would also note that technically this letter could go as an admin letter, but I also felt it very important that it be a public letter showing support, I would hope support from the board, given our long time, as Bert referenced, 2.5 years work on this project. So Dolores, thank you for the indulgence. You with the first question.
So comment. So thank you for acknowledging that this should actually be an administrative letter. I don't know why we're sending this letter. If you think about the power of the voice of the board, this sounds like that the relationship is gone cold, adversarial, etc. The port is a huge organization. And unless they have literally stonewalled and said that they don't want to be speaking to us or threatened like they originally did to tear down the buildings in our community, I think the best way to preserve the great relationship is to go ahead and have that conversation in hammering in the schedule instead of memorializing that the board is actually saying that there's a problem. Even if we put language that's flowery, what we are saying is there's a problem. And well, Jeffrey, the letter doesn't come from you because it's not an administrative letter. The letter came from a working group as new business. Again, not quite sure why. I just am concerned that if we take these liberties on what seems like a scheduling issue, we're slapping the hands of our allies when they have been working well with us, instead of taking advantage of just reminding them through an administrative letter or through the great work of our board office to make those phone calls to try to push for those meetings.
I echo in here, Bert, if I could just for 1 second, hear you completely on this. I would note that Bert is chair of the working group and he has diligently followed up with the port for months. The board office has followed up with the port for months on this topic. We were frankly surprised and, while pleased by the announcement, but alarmed that at the Port Authority's December board meeting, they announced without notification or a decency of a phone call to the community board that they were just going to start construction on these platforms in 2023. You would think if the port had the same relationship for the same respect for the community board that we have for the relationship with the port, they would have given a phone call to our district manager or to Bert, who has direct lines to many of the high ups at the Port Authority, not to mention the relationships of Christine, Joe, and JD as well. So I hear you, I'm with you, though I feel that we are at a point that the public rebuke is polite but appropriate, given the real disengagement, active disengagement to an extent from the port at this time.
Okay, we're just going to disagree on that, Jeff.
That's fine, but I can tell you, Dolores, that we have been following up, right? This has not just been we're going to send a letter.
I would like to also say something, Dolores, in just terms of the process. No organization is 100% together. Okay, they have an organization will have overall goals, but there are groups within the organization will say, maybe we should go route A. No, we should take route B. No, I think we should do route C. Okay? And I think this letter, one of the things this letter does is supports the route that we've been taking, and it supports the people in the Port Authority who are on the route with us.
Katie?
Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah, I think it's a great letter. I just wanted to say, I think you've buried your lead. It's not really clear in the beginning or at the end what you're asking for. I think you should just say, we want to resume our productive regular discussions. Just make your ask more clear. That's all. Thanks.
We can move that up front. Thank you. Bert, you're okay with that, right?
Yeah, I thought we had at the end, but I'll reread it again. It's gone through many iterations, Katie, so I may forget.
JD?
I believe this letter should come from the chair of the board and not from the working group.
So I guess I'm confused as to where that's coming from. This is a letter coming from the chair of the board. It's being introduced by new business, really without a committee. So my understanding is it would be my signature only.
Okay, that's not what I heard. I heard it was coming from the working group, but I feel it needs to come from the chair. This is the chair speaking in a friendly manner to the Port Authority. I think that might allay some of Dolores's very good points.
Yes, and by no means did I think or mean to indicate that Dolores did not make good points in what she raised. Paul?
Yeah, I would just echo what Dolores's point, and maybe there are just some sentences that can be deleted, lines 23 to 24, sort of demanding that the meetings continue. Our points are that we want the ramps are being built, we want them to be park space. This came out of conversations, and we look forward to future conversations. And just sort of take out the language in lines 23, 24, and take out that last sentence, I think. It just sounds very, very demanding that we are eager to begin this conversation versus we are eager to continue this conversation. So just soften the language that we're in partnership. That would be my thoughts.
Thanks, Paul. Joe?
Yeah, at 9:47, I just want to ask that the chair and the members of the committee work to just make the language a little bit easier, and we just move this letter at this time. That would be my motion.
Thanks, Joe. Christine, any final points?
I second that motion.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. I think though the aspect of mitigation of what's being proposed is very important, because this is really the issue that is being raised by building those platforms.
Yeah, so I
think that aspect need to be maintained, but maybe soften up, saying these are the topics that we are really now concerned about, and that's it.
I think that I recognize that a motion has been made and it was seconded, but I'm asking that the motion sort of be withdrawn. We're done with this. And I think the point is that we were, the port made a statement that we were not aware of they were going to be making. It's about construction in our neighborhood. That's item one, and we need to reconvene our meetings as had been the case for the past 2.5 years.
And you'll soften the language to that effect.
Yes. Thank you. Oh my gosh, here we go. Dare I call for other new business? Okay, I want to thank and welcome our newest member of the executive committee, Roberta Barnett, for her participation as co-secretary in her first round, and so turn it over to her and Katie to call the roll for the votes. We have no ULERP this evening, and Jesse, correct me if I'm wrong, but no individual call-outs on the vote. Folks can call out one vote only. I would just in advance notice to our co-secretaries and everybody, there's going to be a number of letters where there's folks P and E, so votes are not as going to be perhaps as straightforward as they often are. Jesse, anything else to add on the vote?
No, there's nothing that warrants a roll call vote to my knowledge, unless one of the committee chairs has some other opinion on it. But no, I think that's fine.
Okay, Katie and Roberta.
And I think Roberta is going to call out the names.
Yes. First time doing this, please be gentle if I mess something up. So I'm going to call for the votes. The first being Ted Arenas.
Yes to all.
And then I will call myself, Roberta. A abstain on 15 and yes to the rest. Christine Verte.
So P&E on 13 and 14, and yes to all the others.
Excellent. Gwen, Billy.
Sorry, yes to all.
Thank you. Leslie Bogosian Murphy.
Yes to all. Good job on the Bogosian.
Viren Brembot,
Yes to all.
Jessica Chait,
Yes to all.
Dale Corvino,
Yes to all.
Aurora Cruz, is Aurora here?
She is not tonight.
She's out, I'm sorry.
Perfect,
She's out
thank
sick.
you.
My apologies.
No, got it. Marty DeCap,
Yes to all, and I submitted the document.
awesome. Paul Devlin,
Yes to all. Good pronunciation on Devlin. Thank you.
Pete Diaz,
Yes to all and submitted.
That is funny.
Tina De Felicitiano.
It was hard.
Is Tina here?
I thought I saw her.
Or she's like deeply offended by my pronunciation of her
No,
name.
I think you did a
So
decent
sorry.
job. I butchered it more than that.
She was here earlier.
Sorry.
She's here. We'll come back.
Okay. Okay. Wendy Gonzalez,
Yes to all.
Matt Green,
P&E on 13 and 14, and yes to the rest.
Jesse Greenwald,
Yes to all. Thank you so much.
Candace Hewitt,
Yes to all.
David Halaka,
Yes to all.
Frank.
Hey, didn't even try. Yes to all.
I'm so sorry, Frank. I'm gonna.
See, Paul? See, Paul?
It's more stressful than I expected. Okay, Josephine Ishman,
Yes to all.
Yadira Jimenez,
Yes to all submitted.
Carrie Keenan,
No to 13 and 14, yes to the rest.
Lowell Kern,
No on 11. Yeah, 11, 13, and 14, yes to the rest.
Blake Karisu,
Yes to all.
Everett Lazarin,
Sometimes Lazarine, depending on my mood. But Lazarine goes tonight, okay? Assuming everything is modified, as we talked about, then it's yes to all.
Chris LeBron. Is Chris here?
Yes, I am. Yes to all. Thank you.
Thank you. Betty McIntosh,
Yes to all.
Sarah Mills. Is Sarah here?
I don't think she's here.
Perfect, thank you. Tina Nelson,
Yes to all.
Mike Noble, is Mike here?
I didn't see Mike all night.
I didn't see
Also
him.
not here.
JD Noland,
No on 13, no on 14, yes to the rest.
thank you. Maria Ortiz,
Yes to all.
Alan Oster,
P&E on 13 and 14, and yes to the rest. Thank you.
Brad Pascarella,
No on 7, rest to the rest. Yes to the rest. Thank you.
Edgar Sucha,
P&E on 12, yes to the rest.
Sabrina Revron,
Abstain in 7 and yes to all.
Dolores Rubin,
No on 13, no on 14, no on 16. Yes to the rest.
David Solnick,
P&E on 13 and 14, yes to the rest.
I'm sorry, what was that on 13, 14?
Yanni,
Oh, got it. Thank you.
Katie Stokes,
Hold on, I'm still writing. Yes to all.
Charles Todd,
Abstain on 7, yes to the rest.
Kit Tellerson,
Yes on all.
Hector Vasquez,
No on 13 and 14, yes to all. The rest.
Murnell Vikram,
Very good job on Murnal Vikram. Yes and all. Thanks.
James Wallace,
Not here.
James is not here. David Warren,
E&E on 13 and 14 and yay to all.
Leslie Williams,
Abstain on 7, no on 13 and 14, and yes to the rest.
Carl Wilson,
Yes to all.
Alice
Make
Wong,
sure.
I abstain on 13 and 14, and then yes to all.
thank you. And then one more, Jeffrey LeFrancois.
Yes to all.
And
Actually, sorry, can we just go back a second? Alice, what was yours again? Sorry.
I am abstaining on 13 and 14, and then yes to all.
Got it. Thank you. And Jeffrey, you were yes to all.
Do you need a motion, Jeffrey?
Well, do we need to?
What motion might I need, Dolores? Or Jesse, hold on. Jesse, do you have
Oh,
a,
did we need to go back to Tina? Did we miss, right?
is Tina back?
Yes, sorry, I got kicked off the internet. I'm here. Yay to all.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Motion
Dolores?
to adjourn?
Second.
Second.
Thank you.
Good
Thank
night,
you, everybody.
everyone.
Thank
Good
you.
night.
Night.
Bye,
Bye.
guys.
Bye-bye. Dinner.